1 billion, and we'll divorce. Jiu Yunyan's breath hitched, her heart shattering piece by piece. Why? Is it because Shen Shujing has returned? Zhang Xiqing lit a cigarette and took a slow drag. The faint smoke rings reflected his cold and distant expression. Yes, what if I'm pregnant? Jiu Yunyan stared at him unblinkingly, hoping to see even a trace of reluctance in his eyes. But there was none. He simply replied coldly, "Get rid of it, or give birth and let Shujing raise it." He. Jiu Yunyan's heart felt as if it had been pricked by needles, aching so much it seemed to bleed. If you've been thinking about her all along, why did you marry me in the first place? For half a year of marriage, though they weren't as inseparable as other couples, they had at least treated each other with respect and harmony. Could it all have been a lie? Zhang Xiqing pressed his tongue against his lower jaw and sneered, "Jiu Yunyan, don't tell me you actually thought a lonely girl from the countryside could ever be worthy of me. I married you because you were obedient and docile, but in my heart, the only one fit to be my wife is Shujing." Jiu Yunyan opened her mouth, took a sharp breath, but in the end, not a single word came out. Then she picked up the pen and signed her name on the divorce agreement. Raising her head, she looked at him, her eyes no longer holding the love they once did, yet hidden in those clear eyes were faint glimmers of tears. She smiled at him, a blaze of fire blooming like flowers. "It's not your fault that you love her, Zhang Xiqing, but wasting half a year of my youth is unforgivable. Though we part ways, only I can move on. Don't you dare rejoice. Life is long, we'll meet again someday. 1 billion. Please donate it to impoverished mountain regions on my behalf." Without a trace of hesitation, Jiu Yunyan turned and walked away as soon as the words were spoken. 5 years later, today marks the second marriage of Zhang Xiqing, the head of the most powerful family in Huaju. He is marrying Shen Shujing, the eldest daughter of the Shen family, a real estate tycoon. They could truly be called a perfect match. A union made in heaven. Their wedding was held at a luxurious 7-star hotel, attended by half the city's elite from the capital. Both the Zhang and Shen families were beaming with joy, their faces radiant with happiness. Although the groom, Zhang Xiqing, remained expressionless, the bride, Shen Shujing, had eyes brimming with tenderness and a smile that curved her brows. 5 years had passed, and she had finally secured her position as the fourth young madam of the Zhang family, becoming the most esteemed woman in Huaju. Just as the MC announced the start of the wedding ceremony, a commotion erupted at the hotel's entrance. A row of black Rolls-Royce cars came to a perfect stop. The first to step out were 10 bodyguards dressed in black suits. The guests began to buzz with discussion. "Oh, who is this? Making such a grand entrance. All the major families from the capital are here in full force. Surely this can't be some foreign tycoon, can it?" Hard to say. Young Master Jiu IV is worth trillions, ranking among the top 3 on the global rich list. There must be countless international celebrities eager to curry favor with him. Under the curious gazes of the crowd, the door of the leading Rolls-Royce slowly opened. A woman dressed in a black cheongsam, adorned with a white pearl brooch at her chest, gracefully stepped out, her snow-white long legs and enchanting figure, even behind sunglasses, revealed her breathtakingly beautiful face. Chapter 2, The Return of the Queen. My God, when did Huaju get such a stunning and wealthy woman? But isn't it inappropriate for her to dress like this at a wedding? If you didn't know better, you'd think she came for a funeral. She definitely can't be from our country. No sense of propriety at all. Amidst the murmurs of the crowd, the woman walked step by step toward the bride and groom. Followed by a Swana band, she raised her slender fingers and slowly removed her sunglasses, revealing her picturesque eyes and brows. The room fell into complete silence. And it took several seconds before someone gasped in astonishment. Isn't this Zhang Xixiao's ex-wife, Jiu Yunyan? Wasn't she just some country bumpkin? 5 years later, she's transformed into a queen. Looks like she came prepared. We're in for a show today. In Shen Shujing's mind, Jiu Yunyan had always been lowly, cowardly, and unworthy of attention. Now, seeing her noble, beautiful, and radiating confidence, her pupils constricted sharply, and she nervously tugged at Zhang Xiqing's sleeve. Yet, Zhang Xiqing subtly pulled away without a trace. He stared blankly at the woman before him, an inexplicable surge of emotion welling up inside, but he just said expressionlessly, "Long time no see, what brings you here?" Gu Union curled her lips into a faint smile. "They say one day as husband and wife brings 100 days of kindness. You and I were married for 200 days. Though you may be heartless, I still have a sense of duty. So for your wedding, I had to come and give you a gift. Let's start with a traditional musical piece to liven things up." With that, she snapped her fingers. The deafening sound of a Swana horn filled the hall. It was actually the funeral dirge crying to the yellow heaven. Shen Shujing's father, Shen Changhai, immediately flew into a rage. Gu Yunyan, wearing black and playing funeral music at someone else's wedding, such immoral and heartless behavior deserves to be struck by lightning. Clap. 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 Gu Yunyan clapped her hands a few times and laughed. "Well said, Chairman Shen, but I'd like to ask you, when your daughter interfered in someone else's marriage, destroying a perfectly good family, wasn't she immoral? Doesn't she deserve to be struck by lightning too?" Shen Changhai's face turned green with anger. "Jingjing and Xiqing have been in love since they were young. You're the one who came between them as the third wheel. How dare a mere country orphan girl humiliate his daughter in front of so many people? He would absolutely make her pay a painful price." Gu Uni raised an eyebrow with a mocking smile. "No wonder Shen real estate's market value has been declining these past few years. It turns out Chairman Shen has grown senile. So muddled he can't distinguish right from wrong and acts unreasonably. Or perhaps, Chairman Shen has always been this way, but hid it well before, now that he's older. He's using his age as an excuse to act shamelessly for profit." The real estate industry has hit a bottleneck in recent years, causing many small developers to go bankrupt. The Shen family, though vast and deeply rooted, was actually suffering severe deficits, with their funds having long faced liquidity problems. 5 years ago, Shen Changhai sent Shen Shujing to seduce Zhon Xiqing, all to align with the Zhon family and facilitate the Shen family's transformation. But how could she let the Shen family have their way? And she certainly wouldn't let Zhon Xiqing off easy. You, insulting your elders, you have no manners." Shen Changhai trembled with rage, initially wanting to raise his hand to strike Gu Union, but restrained himself due to the presence of so many people. "Heh." Gu Union laughed with biting sarcasm. "Seeing how you raised your daughter to break up someone else's family as a homewrecker, I'm truly grateful I wasn't raised by you." Chapter 3. "I never have to marry you again." Gu Union, Shen Shujing shouted, tears of grievance streaming down her face. "It's me, I'm the one who's hopelessly in love with Xiqing. It's all my fault, but my father is innocent, he just cares for his daughter." "Why must you speak so harshly to a father whose heart is full of love?" Her words could be considered the pinnacle of manipulative White Lotus behavior. Though she admitted her mistake, she claimed to love deeply. Evoking sympathy from others, mentioning her father was meant to stab Gu Yunyan's heart. As everyone knew, Gu Yunyan was an orphan from the countryside with no parents. Using paternal love as a topic was also a way to trample on Gu Yunyan's character, stirring resonance among the guests. Indeed, as soon as Shen Shujing finished speaking, everyone began to curse Gu Yunyan. True love isn't wrong. And besides, Miss Shen and fourth young master Zhon are childhood sweethearts. It's only natural for them to be together. A marriage without love won't bring happiness, so why should Gu Union cling on so desperately? Exactly, if she's upset, she should just vent about fourth young master Zhon and Miss Shen. Why resort to such sarcastic insults against Chairman Shen? Chairman Shen is already 60 years old. How could she bear being scolded by a junior like that? If it were me, I'd have slapped her. Chairman Shen actually tolerated it. What magnanimity, whatever the case. A divorce is a divorce. Causing a scene at her ex-husband's wedding is just plain despicable. Hearing everyone's words, Shen Shujing felt a surge of pride in her heart. Though her face still wore a tearful expression, Gu Yunyan didn't speak, but simply played a recording on her phone. Jingjing. The Shen family already has 57 billion in external debt. No matter what, you must make Zhon Xiqing marry you within a month. Dad, how is that possible? Just say you're pregnant. Zhao Yumai is desperate for a grandchild. She'll definitely push you two to get married as soon as possible. But all these years, Zhang Xiqing hasn't even held my hand. There's no way this lie would work. Can't you just get him drunk, strip, and lie next to him? By the next morning, he won't be able to deny it. Alright, I'll try. The recording finished playing, and the room instantly erupted in chaos. Oh my God, the Shen father and daughter have completely shattered my worldview. To climb the social ladder, they could be so shameless. Shen Group publicly claimed to have debts of over 10 billion, but it turns out to be more than 50 billion. It seems the Shen family is really about to collapse. The prestigious top family, the Zhang family, was actually played like a fiddle by the Shens. What a disgrace! What a disgrace! The marriage between Zhang Xiqing and Shen Shujing was essentially orchestrated by Zhao Yumai. Now that the Zhang family has become the laughingstock of the entire Huaju, it was undoubtedly a resounding slap in her face. Her chest ached with fury as she raised her hand and delivered a heavy slap across Shen Shujing's face. After all the love and trust I've given you, it turns out you've been deceiving both me and Xiqing all along. You vile woman, I'll beat you to death. Zhao Yumai grew angrier the more she thought about it, completely losing her rationality as she continuously struck Shen Shujing. But Shen Shujing had no time to care. She reached out to grab Zhang Xiqing's arm, her eyes red from crying. Xiqing, Xiqing, I had no choice. Don't blame me. Even though I lied to you, my love for you is real. Sob, Xiqing, I truly love you. Zhang Xiqing pushed her away slightly, his tone calm and distant. Shujing, I don't blame you. In fact, I should thank you. Thank you for giving me a legitimate reason never to marry you again. Thud. Shen Shujing collapsed onto the ground in a daze. His words were like a sharp knife, slicing her heart into pieces. She would rather he exploded in anger, even grabbed her by the neck and demanded to know why. At least that would prove he still cared about her. But now, his face was full of detachment, his eyes utterly indifferent, as if she were nothing more than a complete stranger. He truly had no affection for her whatsoever, nor had he ever wanted to marry her. Turning to look at the lofty and ethereally beautiful Gu Union, she realized that from beginning to end, it was she, Shen Shujing, who had been the fool. But the humiliation she suffered today would one day be repaid 100-fold by Gu Union. Chapter 4. Could she be our granddaughter? Gu Union had no mood to enjoy the chaotic scene. She lifted her chin slightly, gave Zhang Xiqing a mocking smile, and turned to leave with a carefree air. But Zhang Xiqing strode after her and grabbed her wrist firmly. Knowing she was no match for him in a fight, Gu Union didn't resist, and so, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the groom of this grand wedding walked away hand in hand with his ex-wife. Zhang Xiqing directly took Gu Union to the presidential suite on the top floor of the hotel. As soon as the door closed, he pinned her against the wall. He lowered his head and eagerly kissed her lips. Domineering and urgent, as if venting his longing or delivering a deep punishment. If not for his closed eyes, one would surely see the crimson in his gaze. No matter how many times he kissed her, from forceful to gentle, from tender to lingering, yet Gu Union showed no reaction at all. Not even blinking her eyes, Zhang Xiqing finally noticed her unusual behavior. Lifting her chin, his eyes red with fury, he demanded, "Why aren't you resisting? Why?" She should have hit him, cursed at him, even made a scene of life and death, anything but this calm and disdainful indifference. Gu Union gave him a faint glance. Resistance will only further provoke a man's desire. If President Zhang is interested in a wooden doll, go ahead, it's not like we haven't slept together before. I won't pretend to be a chaste martyr like your beloved Shen Shujing. Zhang Xiqing narrowed his eyes, his heart suddenly stung with pain. Do you act like this with every man? Yes. Disgusting. Zhang Xiqing shoved her away, his icy eyes concealing a raging fire. Gu Uni let out a sigh and chuckled lightly. No matter how low I may be, I would never cheat during marriage, let alone become the other woman seducing someone else's husband. Compared to you and Shen Shujing, I'm practically a saint. Don't mention Shen Shujing. Hair. Gu Uni walked up to Zhang Xiqing, reached out to smooth his collar, her every smile and glance dripping with allure. What's wrong? Feeling heartbroken after being deceived by your beloved woman? Good, you should feel that way, Zhang Xiqing. I told you during our divorce, you'll never find happiness, not in this lifetime. she had returned for one purpose: revenge against Zhang Xiqing and Shen Shujing. This was something she saw no need to hide. "I'm afraid your wish won't come true. Thanks for making a scene. Now I don't have to marry Shen Shujing. Who you want to marry is none of my concern. My only goal was to ruin your wedding. Next time you get married, I'll send you a funeral wreath." Zhang Xiqing grabbed her slender hand, his brows furrowed with unshakable sorrow. "Then with such a grand spectacle now, which wealthy man have you married this time? None of your business, husband. Bro, let go. I need to go home and take care of the kids, children." Zhang Xiqing's eyebrows furrowed tightly, and he roared, "You actually got married and had children? Jiyu Union, how dare you?" Jiyu Union was furious, her voice suddenly rising. "You could divorce me for another woman, so why can't I, a single person, get married and have children? Back then, to divorce me and marry Shen Shujing, you didn't hesitate to give me $1 billion. Now you're acting like what? You're not going to say that after I left, you realized you loved me and have been waiting for me all these years, are you, Zhang Xiqing? You really disgust me." She abruptly slapped his hand away, turned around, and slammed the door shut as she stormed out. Walking too quickly, she accidentally knocked an elderly woman to the ground at the corner. "I'm so sorry. My apologies. My apologies." Jiyu Union hurriedly apologized and reached out to help her, but the elderly woman's husband stepped in first, asking with anxious concern, "Dear, are you hurt anywhere?" The old man patted his hand and smiled, saying, "It's all right, I'm fine." After speaking, she turned her gaze to Jiyu Union. Upon clearly seeing her face, she couldn't help but pause in surprise, taking a moment before kindly saying, "You must be Union, the ex-wife of the fourth son of the Zhang family, right?" "Union, don't take it to heart. I'm really okay," Jiyu Union replied. "Elderly people are more fragile. Maybe I should still take you to the hospital for a checkup." "No need." The old lady playfully stretched her arms and legs. "See, I'm perfectly fine. Then I'll leave you my phone number. If anything comes up, you can contact me. Alright, Yunyan, you're such a good child." After Jiyu Yunyan left, the old lady looked at her phone number on the mobile phone and excitedly said to the old man, "Old man, have you noticed that this Jiyu Yunyan looks about 70 to 80% like our daughter when she was young?" Earlier in the auditorium, because she was far away, she hadn't gotten a clear look at Jiyu Yunyan's face. The close contact just now, Jiyu Yunyan's eyes, nose, and mouth, all looked so much like her daughter. The old man nodded, his heart tightening with tension. "I thought so too. Do you think she could be our missing granddaughter from 25 years ago?" Chapter 5. "My son would rather marry a pig than you." The old lady's eyes welled up with tears. "I heard Union is an orphan. Then we must go ask her right away. She had 4 sons in her lifetime, but only one daughter. The daughter was stunningly beautiful and became an international superstar. However, she secretly gave birth to a child out of wedlock, fearing it would damage her career in the entertainment industry. Her manager privately abandoned the baby in the wilderness. Although the manager received the punishment he deserved, her granddaughter was never found. 3 years ago, her daughter also passed away due to illness. Her granddaughter had become her only solace, and now seeing Jiyu Union, who looked so much like her daughter, how could she not be overwhelmed with emotion? The old gentleman comforted her, saying, "Don't rush, we need to plan this carefully. If we approach Union so abruptly, we might frighten her. Yes, let's hurry home and have our sons investigate Union's background." On the other side, as Jiyu Union returned home, the 3 adorable babies rushed towards her. Eldest child Jiyu Xiaotian. "Mommy, are you okay? How did the revenge go?" Second child Jiyu Xiaochen. "Mommy, did you beat up that scumbag?" Youngest child Jiyu Xiaoxing. "Mommy, take me with you next time. Whoever bullies you, I'll scratch their face." Jiyu Union smiled gently, her heart melting. "Don't worry. Mommy will return victorious." Xiao Chen pulled Jiyu Union to sit on the sofa, speaking in a childish yet precocious tone. "Mommy, even that scumbag has remarried. You should find someone to marry too. I think Uncle Cheng, who sells airplanes, is pretty good." Xiao Tian shook his head. "Uncle Cheng isn't good. He's too handsome and might attract too much attention. Uncle Lin, who sells yachts, is better, he's honest and kind, and treats mommy well. Xiaoxing disagreed again. But Uncle Lin is a bit too plain-looking. I think Uncle Zhong, who sells oil, is the best. He's handsome, rich, and dotes on mommy. Absolutely perfect. Jiu Union couldn't help but laugh. Her three treasures really thought too highly of her. The heir to an aircraft manufacturing company, the second young master of a cruise ship builder, the son of an oil tycoon. None of these were matches she could ever hope to deserve. Even if she did deserve them, she wouldn't marry anyone in this lifetime. That morning, after sending her 3 children to kindergarten, Jiu Union arrived at the company, Junction Investment Group, just as she parked her car and was about to go upstairs. She spotted a familiar face, her ex-mother-in-law, Zhao Yumai. Fate brings enemies together. Jiu Union didn't want to deal with her and was about to walk away. Unexpectedly, Zhao Yumai sharply called out to her, "Jiu Union, stop, what are you doing here?" Jiu Union turned around and gave her a cold glance. "None of your business." "How is it none of my business? You must be here for Xiqing, let me tell you. Don't think that renting a few luxury cars and hiring some bodyguards can elevate a country bumpkin like you into high society. A lowly woman will always be lowly. You're not even fit to polish my son's shoes." Jiu Union glanced up at the Yingfan Tower beside her, curling her lips into a faint smile. She had deliberately chosen the company's location next to Zhon Xiqing's firm precisely to irritate the Zhon family. "Right, I'm not worthy of even tying your son's shoelaces. Shun Shujing is the perfect match for your son, the ultimate pair, a match made in heaven. Instead of waiting at home to drink your daughter-in-law's tea, what are you doing howling in the streets first thing in the morning? Aren't you ashamed at your age?" Watching Jiu Union's mockery, Zhao Yumai was seething with rage. "Yesterday, my son was lured away by a little tramp like you at the wedding. And now you're saying this just to disgust me, aren't you? Don't think that just because you ruined my son's wedding with Shun Shujing, he'll get back together with you. As long as I'm alive, don't even think about it. There are countless women in this world. I'll make sure my son meets a today. Even if he ends up marrying a sow, he'll never marry a little wretch like you." Chapter 6. Who said you could call me Nyan Nyan? Jiu Union blew a strand of hair from her forehead, her expression suddenly turning cold. "Zhao Yumai, I'm not the same Jiu Union who used to live under your thumb. Call me little wretch one more time, and I'll tear your mouth apart." She had truly never met a high society lady as low class as Zhao Yumai. Even street hooligans had better manners. Zhao Yumai, as the wife of the most prominent family in Huaju, was accustomed to being greeted with bows and nods wherever she went. Now, being publicly scolded by a former daughter-in-law she had always looked down upon, she was naturally furious. You little wretch, I'll call you that. What can you do about it? You're nothing but a wretch." Jiu Union wasn't about to tolerate this. She reached out to tear at Zhao Yumei's mouth, while Zhao, her anger boiling over, flailed her arms wildly, aiming blows at Jiu Union. At this moment, a black Rolls-Royce slowly came to a stop not far away. The driver, Xiao Zhong, was stunned by the scene before him. He turned to Zhon Xiqing and said, President, the chairman's wife and your ex-wife are fighting." Zhon Xiqing glanced over and saw his mother, who was usually dressed in dazzling jewels, now with her hair disheveled, makeup smudged, and even her coat torn. Meanwhile, Jiu Union, who had once been gentle and delicate, now stood tall in a sleek black business suit, looking poised and professional, with not a single hair out of place. This isn't a fight between two people at all, but rather his mother being unilaterally abused. He strode out of the car, bought a sandwich and milk at the nearby breakfast shop, and walked over. "What are you doing? With so many employees coming and going, aren't you ashamed?" As soon as Zhao Yumai saw her son arrive, her tears flowed like a faucet. Sai Chen, Jiu Union, she's so audacious she actually dared to hit me." Zhon Sai Chen pulled her behind him. Zhao Yumai thought he was protecting her and was just about to grin when she heard him say to Jiu Union, "Dressed like that? Do you work around here?" Jiu Union glared at him. "What's it to you? Mind your own mother. I may be an uncouth country girl with no manners, but I don't know anything about respecting elders or loving the young. If she comes looking for trouble again, I'll break her legs and make sure she can't leave the house for half a year." When she was the daughter-in-law of the Jean family, she obeyed Zhao Yuemei's every word and attended to her meticulously, but all she got in return was ridicule and abuse. Now, she no longer has any reservations about her. "Siken, did you hear that? Even though you're divorced from her, I was once her mother-in-law. An elder. How could there be such a vicious woman in the world who would break her former mother-in-law's leg? It's absolutely insane." Jean Siken gave her a sidelong glance. "Enough, if you know she's vicious and insane, why provoke her? Your old bones won't heal easily if they break. Go home now." He knew all too well how overbearing his own mother could be. If it weren't for Jiyu Yunyan's previously good temper, this fight should have happened 5 years ago. Zhao Yumei glared. "Sai Chen, what are you saying? I told you to strangle this little bitch to get justice for me. Why are you still taking her side?" Before Zhang Xiqing could speak, Jiyu Yunyan pointed at her and said, "You're still insulting me, aren't you? Does it bother you that your mouth isn't rotten yet? I'll fix that for you." As she spoke, Jiyu Yunyan raised her hand and reached toward Zhao Yuemei's mouth again. Zhang Xiqing quickly grabbed her arm. "Nyan Nyan. Fighting early in the morning ruins your image. Don't argue with the elderly." "Jiyu Yunyan, who gave you the right to call me Nyan Nyan?" "Zhao Yumei, who are you calling elderly?" Both of them were furious. Zhang Xiqing pressed his tongue against his lower jaw, his heart filled with irritation. Handling billion-dollar projects had never been as difficult as this moment. He handed the breakfast in his hand to Jiyu Yunyan, hungry from the fight. "Here, eat, get lost." Jiyu Yunyan growled under his breath before turning and walking into Zhongshan Tower. Zhang Xiqing then offered the breakfast to Zhao Yumei. "If she won't eat, you have it." Zhao Yumei planted her hands on her hips, so furious that she laughed instead. "What do you mean? What she doesn't eat goes to me. Let me tell you, it'll always be me, your mother," stepping on her head, never the other way around. "Since things with Shen Shujing fell through, starting tomorrow, you're going on blind dates. Find someone to marry as soon as possible. We must make Jiyu Yunyan completely give up on you. If she thinks she can cling to you, she's got another think coming. We're all women here. Jiyu Nyan is just playing hard to get. She can't fool my eyes." Chapter 7. The three of them start fighting. Zhang Xiqing handed the breakfast to Zhong Shuai, then said to Zhao Yumei, "You should give up on this idea too. If I ever marry again in this lifetime, it will only be to Jiyu Yunyan, once." He thought the woman who would accompany him for life should be someone like Shen Shujing, with a good family background and delicate beauty, brilliant, gentle, and virtuous. With a smile that warms the heart. But over these 5 years, Shen Shujing remained the same Shen Shujing. Yet her smiles no longer brought him joy, only a deeper longing for Jiyu Yunyan. Day by day, the longing grew stronger. "Zhang Xiqing, you're insane. How could you?" Before Zhao Yumei could finish, Zhang Xiqing interrupted. "I'm in a hurry to get to work, so I'll leave now. If there's nothing else, don't disturb me, and especially don't bother Jiyu Yunyan." With those words, he turned and strode away, leaving Zhao Yumei stomping her feet in frustration. What sin had she committed in a past life to deserve this? At 6 in the evening, the rain poured down heavily. As soon as Jiyu Yunyan stepped out of the company, she saw Shen Shujing standing in the rain, dressed in a white dress. The wind blew, causing her hair and the hem of her dress to flutter together, creating an exceptionally poignant beauty. Coincidentally, Zhang Xiqing also walked out at that moment. Shen Shujing quickly stumbled over, crying, "Xiqing, I called you so many times but you didn't answer. I know you're angry, and I know I've wronged you, but I didn't mean to. You're the one I love most. Lying to you is like cutting out my own heart, but I had no choice. If I didn't marry you, you wouldn't help the Shen family. I couldn't just stand by and watch the Shen family collapse. Siken, please forgive me. I can't live without you." Zhong Shuai held an umbrella for Zhang Siken, while Zhang Siken just glanced coldly at Shen Shujing with one hand in his pocket. "Shujing, I told you, I don't blame you, but we can't be together because I no longer have romantic feelings for you. You deserve better. Go back." "No, I don't want to," Shen Shujing cried until her voice was hoarse, clutching Zhang Xiqing's arm tightly. "I know you're still angry. You can punish me however you want, But please don't say such heartbreaking words. Okay, Siken, I love you. I've loved you for a full 10 years. Jean Siken pulled his arm away and sneered. Ha, really? If you loved me, why did you leave the country back then? But none of that matters anymore. Let's each go our own way from now on. I'm sorry, Siken. Shen Shujing sobbed uncontrollably. Leaving the country back then was the worst decision she had ever made in her life. Otherwise, her child with Zhon Siqing would be in school by now, and she would be the most dazzling and noble woman in Huaju. There would be no need for her to come to his company in such a disheveled state to confront him. Jiyu Union walked over with small, delicate steps under her umbrella, clicking her tongue. TSK, 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 aren't you two the perfect golden couple? How did things end up like this? Ha 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 ha. She made no effort to hide her mockery. She had returned precisely to witness their misery, their suffering, and to laugh at their misfortune. Employees passing by began to chatter and gossip among themselves. Oh my God, the CEO, her current partner, and her ex-wife are actually fighting. Is this juicy gossip really something I can enjoy for free? What current partner? Didn't you hear the CEO say it? He and Shen Shujing have agreed to go their separate ways peacefully from now on. Who would have thought the eldest daughter of the Shen family, who always seemed so kind and graceful, would stoop to fabricating a pregnancy lie just to climb the social ladder? The CEO's ex-wife is the real legend. Though, rumor has it she showed up to his wedding in a black chipao with a Swana band playing funeral music. She just had a fight with our CEO's mother this morning, and now she's tearing into the CEO and Miss Shen. This time, she's no longer the weak and helpless ex-CEO's wife. She's back as Naohuru Yunyan. Modern women should be bold in love and hate like this. I stand with the ex-CEO's wife. Keep it down. If the CEO hears, you'll be fired. Chapter 8. She's not good enough for you. Shen Shujing looked at Jiyu Union, a flash of intense hatred flickering in her eyes. But it was quickly concealed. Union, I know you came back this time to take Siqing away from me, but I truly love him. I can't live without him. Please, stop clinging to him, okay? Jiyu Union curled her lips into a wicked smile. You've misunderstood. I'm not here to take him back. A scumbag like him could beg on his knees, and I still wouldn't want him. No, I'm here to watch karma catch up with both of you. As she spoke, she turned her gaze back to Zhon Siqing. Although I'm happy to see the two of you like this, President Zhon, there's one thing I don't understand. What exactly made you so cold toward the woman you once abandoned your wife to marry? Because of you. Zhon Siqing stared at her intently, his deep eyes filled with boundless sorrow. Because I realized the one who truly resides in my heart is you. Are you satisfied with this answer? Before Jiyu Union could respond, Shen Shujing seemed to have suffered a tremendous blow. Impossible, Siqing. You're just saying this to deceive me, aren't you? I'm the one you've always loved. He must still be angry with her. After all, she's the white moonlight in the sky. How could any man forsake such purity to love a lump of mud on the ground? Zhon Siqing didn't even glance at Jiyu Union, his gaze never leaving her face. Jiyu Union, equally indifferent to Shen Shujing, raised an eyebrow at Zhon Siqing and parted her red lips. Satisfied, of course I am. Jiyu Union, am worthy of piercing straight into the heart of any man in this world. With that, she turned on her 7-inch heels and walked away without another word. The pouring rain, the black suit, the straight back. Zhon Siqing never knew that the woman from 5 years ago, who was gentle, soft-spoken, and had eyes only for him, could be so independent, confident, and breathtakingly beautiful, as if just by standing there, she radiated dazzling brilliance. His unwavering gaze, his lovelorn demeanor, all felt like knives cutting into Shen Shujing's heart. It hurt so much she went mad. Siqing, Jiyu Union is just a country bumpkin. She's not worthy of you. You can't like her. Siqing, look at me. The heavy rain mixed with her tears, leaving the usually elegant and noble Shen Shujing as disheveled as a drowned rat. Zhon Siqing just said coldly, Zhong Shuai, take Miss Shen back. Then he got into the car by himself. The next day, as soon as Zhon Siqing arrived at the office, he called Zhong Shuai over. President, don't worry, I safely took Miss Shen home yesterday. She remained relatively calm throughout the journey. Zhang Xiqing glared at him. Who asked you about Shen Shujing? Did you find out what position GU Union holds at Zhengxin Investment Group? Zhang Shuai shook his head. The information department did their best, and I even personally asked at the front desk of the neighboring company, but we still couldn't find out your ex-wife's position. What ex-wife? She will always be your CEO's wife. Yes, yes. Zhang Shuai finally understood. Their CEO had truly never forgotten his wife all these years. Then why did he divorce his wife back then because of Miss Shun? Has the president of Zhengxin been identified yet? Zhang Shuai shook his head again. No, not yet. He found it quite strange as well. Previously, they could get results within 10 minutes when investigating someone. But this time they couldn't even uncover a single strand of hair about the two people from the neighboring company. This Zhengxin must be anything but ordinary. Zhang Xiqing paused for a moment before saying, "Send an invitation to the president of Zhengxin and arrange to have dinner with him." This was the first time in all these years since he became the president of Yingfan that he had taken the initiative to invite someone. Chapter 9, I want to keep riding the waves. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, GU Union turned off her computer and was about to leave work when her assistant, Dai Lei, walked in with an invitation. "President, the CEO of Yingfan next door has invited you to dinner tonight." GU Union lazily leaned back in her chair, curling her lips into a faint smile. "Tell him I'm busy." "Yes, oh, is our little BA so busy after becoming a CEO that she doesn't even have time for a meal?" GU Union looked up and saw a stunning woman with fiery red lips walking gracefully toward her. Wavy hair, a champagne-colored bodycon dress that reached her ankles, she walked with a swaying grace, her charm natural and effortless. "Seventh senior sister." GU Union stood up happily. "Weren't you filming abroad? How did you return so quickly? Isn't it good that I came back to be with you?" Yongjing sat on the sofa and lit a cigarette. "I can't kiss male actors when there's someone in my heart, so I quit filming." Ha ha ha. GU Union couldn't help but laugh. "What's the matter? Is the playboy finally settling down?" Her seventh senior sister, 26 years old, is an international superstar who flirts with countless people but has never had a real boyfriend. She truly has it all: wealth, beauty, a thriving career, and no shortage of men. Yongjing blew out a smoke ring and said helplessly, "I don't want to settle down, it's so much better to be free in the sea, but now I can't get interested in any young hotess. My mind is completely filled with thoughts of my dear Uncle Lu." "Then go find him." Yongjing pouted in frustration, "but he said he prefers me to stay away from him." GU Union wrapped an arm around her shoulder. "What a blind jerk. If he doesn't love you, I will. Come home with me tonight. I'll personally cook you something delicious." "Great." The two left the company, and Yongjing opened the trunk of her limited edition Bugatti, which was packed with gifts for the three babies. "Xiao Ba, I'm tired and don't feel like driving. Come on. Move all these to your car." As they were moving the items, a tall figure suddenly loomed over them, stunningly handsome from head to toe, enough to make anyone scream. Yongjing never expected to encounter such a handsome man in Huaju, and her inner playgirl instantly resurfaced. She said gently, "Hi, handsome. What's up?" "I have something to ask GU Union." Yongjing smiled. "Xiao Ba, you know him?" Without even looking up, GU Union calmly uttered 3 words, "Zhang Xiqing." "What? He's that damned ex-husband of yours." Yongjing's expression instantly changed, and she lifted her foot to kick at Zhang Xiqing. "You scumbag, how dare you bully my junior sister? I'll cripple you." GU Union and her siblings, all 8 of them, had trained in ancient martial arts. Even Yongjing, the playgirl, was no exception. Though she was wearing a skirt, the speed of her kick was formidable. An ordinary person would surely have their bones broken by that strike. But Zhang Xiqing had been practicing martial arts since he was 3 years old, so he dodged effortlessly. GU Union quickly grabbed Yongjing. "Don't bother with him, I'll handle my own matters myself." When she married Zhang Xiqing back then, she had kept it a secret from her master and senior brothers and sisters. So now that she had been wronged, she naturally had to seek justice on her own. How could she have the face to ask her senior brothers and sisters to stand up for her? Yongjing flicked her skirt and glared angrily at Zhang Xiqing. If it weren't for my junior sister stopping me, your Jean family would have been blown up long ago. Listen up, Jean. Let me tell you, there's always someone better out there. Don't think for a second you can dominate everything. It's only because my junior sister is kind-hearted that she didn't go all out to crush you and that Shen Shujing. Otherwise, the Jean and Shen families would have long been erased from Huaju. Chapter 10. I'm really in pain. Jean Siqing's pupils contracted slightly as his gaze shifted to GU Union. Not to mention ordinary people, even international tycoons wouldn't dare to say something like erasing the Jean family in front of him. Could it be that his ex-wife has some powerful, unknown identity? I still remember when they divorced, he said he would give her $1 billion, and she generously told him to donate it to the mountainous regions. Was it that she was never some poor, wild girl, but rather married him while hiding her true identity? Suddenly, Jean Siqing seemed to realize something. Nyan Nyan, you're the CEO of Zhengshan, aren't you? Before GU Union could speak, Yongjing snapped impatiently. What does this have to do with you? Could you, as an outsider, have some self-awareness, please? Jean Siqing seemed to turn a deaf ear, his heart aching sharply as he stared at the children's toy in GU Union's hand. His tone also lost its composure. You actually remarried and had a child? GU Union looked up into his eyes without flinching. Yes, the child is already over 3 years old. Right after divorcing you, I found someone else immediately. Is that not allowed? Actually, her 3 children were already over 4 years old. But Jean Siqing didn't deserve to be their father, so early on, she had instructed the children to say they were a year younger. Jean Siqing grabbed GU Union's wrist, his entire body radiating danger. No way. If you can ruin my wedding, I'll never let you marry someone else. GU Union, divorce your current husband immediately, or you'll be burying him. You know what I'm capable of. He could tolerate everything from GU Union, but he would show no mercy to anyone else. Let go of me. GU Union clenched her other fist and swung at him with powerful, rapid strikes. Jean Siqing was startled and barely managed to dodge, but GU Union was already seeing red. Without a second thought about whether she could defeat him, she raised her leg and kicked toward him. A flash of admiration crossed Jean Siqing's eyes. I didn't expect you to know martial arts. There's a lot you don't know about me. GU Union kicked off her high heels, changed into the spare sneakers in the car, took off her suit jacket and threw it to Yongjing, then pointed at Jean Siqing and said, I've wanted to hit you for a long time. With that, she used the ancestral shadowless palm technique taught by her master to strike at Jean Siqing. The two of them were soon locked in a fierce fight. Employees from both Zhengxin and Yingfan companies were as shocked as if they had discovered a new continent. Our CEO is fighting with his ex-wife. Why does his ex-wife keep causing trouble for the CEO every day? They've been divorced for so long, it would be much more dignified to part on good terms. The CEO's ex-wife isn't here for him. She actually works at the neighboring Zhengxin investment group. Don't even get me started. His ex-wife was truly beautiful. Even prettier than that Miss Shin. She was both beautiful and fierce. The CEO was somewhat ungrateful to divorce her, just as everyone was wondering who would win. Jean Siqing suddenly stopped dodging, and GU Union's kick landed squarely on his arm. Hiss! Jean Siqing took 2 steps back. Nyan Nyan, stop hitting me, a broken arm hurts so much. GU Union knew he was letting her win, which not only didn't relieve her anger but also made her feel insulted. Stop pretending. Get lost. Just seeing you annoys me. Jean Siqing clutched his arm as he walked up to her. I'm not pretending, it really hurts. He had secretly applied force, deliberately dislocating the joint. The pain was truly excruciating, but as long as it could win GU Union's sympathy, it was worth it. Chapter 11. They are my life. According to Jean Siqing's plan, GU Union should have been looking at him with guilt, worry, and concern by now. Yet, GU Union actually took out several stacks of red bills from her bag and threw them into his arms. You're just trying to blackmail me, aren't you? This money is more than enough for your hospital bills. Jean Siqing's eyebrows twitched. Since when did this damn woman's intelligence and emotional quotient drop so low? Seeing her about to get into the car, he quickly grabbed her arm. What else do you want? GU Union shook him off. What I just said about you divorcing that wild man. You'd better take it to heart, otherwise, I can't guarantee that you'll be sleeping with a corpse that night. Jiu Yunyan blew on the strands of hair on her forehead and said with a light smile, Jean Sai Chen, if you have the guts, try to kill him. If you can't, I'll look down on you. Alright, you just wait. Watching Jiu Yunyan's car drive away, Zhang Xiqing quickly popped his dislocated arm back into place. Then, with a murderous aura, he barked at Zhong Shuai, go find out immediately who that bastard married to Jiu Yunyan is. If you and the intel department fail again, you're all fired. Jiu Yunyan brought Yongjing home, where housekeeper Aunt He had already prepared dinner. The three children were reading storybooks. As soon as they saw Yongjing, the babies immediately rushed over, competing to be the first to reach her. Seventh Mom, I missed you so much. Xiao Tian's face was serious, but his big eyes were filled with affection. Not to be outdone, Xiao Chen stepped forward, his sparkling, watery eyes gazing at Yongjing as he spoke in a sweet, childish voice, and Xiao Chen missed seventh Mom too. Little Star, who was a few steps behind her two older brothers, wobbled over, blinked her big grape-like purple eyes, looked up at Yongjing, pouted her little mouth, and flashed a sweet smile. Auntie Chi, your makeup is so exquisite today, you look absolutely stunning. Yongjing was instantly charmed into a beaming smile. She bent down to pick her up, her eyes crinkling as if filled with twinkling stars. Little Star, you're such a sweet talker. Auntie Jing hasn't spoiled you for nothing. Jiu Yunyan came in a step later and snorted, though his eyes held a hint of amusement. Enough with the mushiness, everyone. Go wash your hands and come eat. The three little ones were very well behaved. After hearing her words, they didn't need any help and obediently went to wash their hands. The little munchkins stood in a row, crowding around the sink, scrubbing their chubby little hands in unison. The sight melted Yongjing's heart. She clutched her chest, her tone tinged with playful resentment. Xiao Ba, if you weren't my junior sister, I'd steal all three precious babies away. Jiu Yunyan curled her lips. Though she knew it was a joke, she still shot her a reproachful glance. That won't do, they're my life. Yongjing scoffed and stepped forward to help wash the hands of the three babies. Jiu Yunyan went to the kitchen to help Sister He serve the dishes, although dinner wasn't prepared by Jiu Yunyan. Sister He's cooking was excellent, and Yongjing ate with great satisfaction, not at all behaving like a big celebrity. Jiu Yunyan glanced at her with a teasing look. If your manager finds out you ate so much at my place, they'd probably storm over here to confront me, since there were children at home. Yongjing didn't light a cigarette. She lazily leaned back in her chair and said casually, she's already given up on me. Come on, little ones, Auntie Chi will sing for you. All three babies clapped their hands and cheered. Yay, yay, Auntie Chi's singing is the best. Yongjing sang for a full half-hour until she had lulled them all to sleep. When she came to the living room, she saw Jiu Yunyan in loose pajamas watching TV, and a look of disdain appeared on her face. The nightlife is just getting started. What's with this grandpa-style outfit of yours? She leaned lazily against the doorframe, flashing Jiu Yunyan a seductive smile as she spoke with enthusiasm. Come on, let your seventh senior sister take you out for some fun. Chapter 12. Looking down on your big brother, Jiu Yunyan glanced at her. Aren't you afraid of being caught by paparazzi? Yongjing smirked proudly. Which paparazzi would dare to photograph me? Even if they did, no media outlet would dare to publish it. Over the years, she had flirted with so many young heartthrobs, yet in media reports, she remained the epitome of pure and alluring charm, a little fairy. All right then. Let's go. Soon, the two of them drove to Night Feast, the largest entertainment venue in the entire capital. Inside, the lights swayed, casting a hazy glow. Yongjing pulled her along and skillfully found a booth, casually ordering from the bartender, a martini and a whiskey, please. Yongjing was wearing a fitted black minidress today, looking stunningly hot. Though Jiu Yunyan wasn't dressed as boldly, she was still strikingly beautiful. The moment the two sat down, they drew the attention of everyone around them. The drink hasn't been mixed yet when the young man in a pink shirt beside them turns around, the flashing lights unable to hide the frivolity in his eyes. First time here, ladies, let big brother treat you. Yongjing curled her lips and scoffed. not bothering to hide her disgust. "I was hitting bars when you were still suckling. Not in the mood to deal with you today, so stop hovering around me and get lost." The young man was immediately offended, his face darkening on the spot. "Calling you beauty was just being polite. Dressing up to look like a celebrity. Don't actually think you're Yongjing." Gu Union couldn't help but burst into laughter, under the dim lighting. Her delicate and striking features were unmistakably distinctive. When she smiled, her expression carried a mix of pride and allure, revealing a slender swan-like neck that glowed startlingly white in the muted light. The young man's eyes lit up with admiration, seeing the curve of her smiling eyes and her seemingly approachable demeanor. Emboldened by alcohol, he leered and grinned. "See, I was right, wasn't I, beauty?" Gu Union held back the furious Yongjing and curled her lips into a smirk. The moment Yongjing saw her smile like that, he knew she was up to no good again, so he immediately sat down to enjoy the show. Gu Union turned to the young man and asked, "Brother, are you really going to treat me and my senior sister to drinks? We can both hold our liquor quite well." That single brother made the young man's bones go weak, and he waved his hand dismissively. "A few drinks are nothing. Do you think I can't afford it?" He pulled a card from his wallet and slapped it onto the bar with a loud smack. "Drink up, whatever you want tonight. Big bro's got it all covered." Gu Union glanced at the bartender across from him and said meaningfully, "See that? This big bro is generous. He's treating everyone in the bar tonight." The young man froze at Gu Union's words, his face darkening, looking at her fair, delicate little face. He couldn't resist the urge to reach out and pinch her chin, emboldened by the alcohol. "Are you messing with me?" Gu Union's smile remained unchanged as she blocked the man's wrist, her eyes filled with disdain. "Can't even afford this. A broke loser like you dares to hit on girls. Go piss and look at yourself in the mirror. See how pathetic you are." The young man instantly flew into a rage, standing up to slap her. "Bitch. What did you just say?" Gu Union responded with a cold smirk, unhesitatingly slapping him back. Then she grabbed his head and slammed it hard onto the bar counter. "You bastard. Who the hell are you calling names?" The young man, furious from her audacity, clutched his head and roared, "You bitch, how dare you lay hands on me? The owner of Night Banquet is my cousin. If you don't get on your knees and beg me right now, I'll make sure you can't even crawl out of here today." Before he could finish his words, Gu Union curled her red lips into a cold smirk and swiftly delivered a kick aimed straight at his family jewels. "I'd like to see how you're going to make me unable to leave this place." "Ah!" The young man bent over in pain and roared viciously, "Security, where's security? Grab her." At his words, the bar's security guards immediately swarmed forward. Chapter 13, Who Slapped Me? Gu Yun curled her lips into a smile. Showing no mercy, with her long, straight legs, she swept a kick toward the security guard charging at her, then pressed against the bar counter and launched a swift side kick. Her movements were so sharp they left people gasping in astonishment. 1 kick per person. Each security guard took a heavy hit, collapsing to the ground, unable to get back up. If not for the inappropriate setting, the other bargoers might have burst into applause and cheers. "Holy shit, that was insane. Am I really getting to watch this for free? Damn, is this martial arts? I was just worried for the two beauties, but now I realize I was the idiot." Watching the security guards lying dead all over the place, the young man's legs couldn't help but tremble. He blustered with a show of bravado. "You bitch, don't get cocky. You've wrecked the place, and my cousin won't let you off the hook." Gu Union grabbed his collar, yanked him forward, and slammed his head onto the nearby table. With a murderous aura, she growled, "Who are you calling a bitch? Looks like you've got a death wish. Go on, call your cousin. Let's see how he won't let me off." The commotion had long since stopped the DJ, and the vast bar fell silent except for the thudding sound of the young man's head hitting the table. "Stop!" Suddenly, an angry shout came from the doorway, and a man dressed in deep purple walked in. The young man burst into a sinister laugh upon seeing him, his face twisted with arrogance. "Bitch, my cousin is here, you're done for." Gu Union smiled, her crimson lips curling into a mocking arc. She grabbed a nearby wine bottle and smashed it mercilessly against his head. Bang! Crimson blood streamed down his forehead. Jiyu Yunyan's face was full of indifference, his pitch-black eyes deep and unfathomable. You never learn. The man in the purple suit quickly pushed through the crowd and approached. Do you know who I am? Daring to cause trouble and hit my cousin in my presence. Do you have a death wish? Jiyu Yunyan curled his lips coldly, a hint of mockery in his eyes as he raised an eyebrow slightly and asked lightly, "Oh, and who might you be?" The man in the purple suit caught a glimpse of his cousin's pitiful and disheveled state out of the corner of his eye, and a surge of anger instantly rushed to his head. Although my cousin is a good-for-nothing, everyone knows his relationship with me. He glared at Jiyu Yunyan, his eyes almost spitting fire. Damn it, how dare you beat someone up like this? You're slapping me in the face. In my, Chen Ershao's territory, beating my people, you've got some nerve. His gaze shamelessly swept over Jiyu Yunyan from head to toe. I don't care if you genuinely don't know me, Chen Yu, or if you're just pretending, but you must have heard of Chen Tianqing, the chairman of Yuanshan Group. He pressed his tongue against his left cheek, staring at Jiyu Yunyan as he slowly and threateningly enunciated, "That is my dad." Chen Xinghong became instantly smug upon hearing Chen Yu's words. Covering his forehead and swaggering beside Chen Yu with an arrogant tone, "Cousin, stop the nonsense and hurry up getting your people to deal with her. That little bitch is vicious, she hits way too hard. I feel like my forehead is about to split. Quick, quick, grab her and break her legs." Perhaps too excited, he unconsciously took 2 more steps forward, getting dangerously close to Jiyu Yunyan. He stared at Jiyu Yunyan shamelessly, his gaze lecherous and full of malice. "Tonight, I'm going to make you." Suddenly, his voice cut off, because Jiyu Yunyan grabbed his collar and yanked him back again. Chen Xinghong's internal alarm bells immediately went off. He hadn't expected Jiyu Yunyan to dare lay hands on him again, and instantly let out a pathetic wail. "Shit, shit, shit. Cousin, save me, this bitch." Before he could finish saying person, Jiyu Yunyan raised her hand and slapped him 10 times in a row. Chapter 14. Who dares to touch my woman? Chen Yu stepped forward angrily, glaring at Jiyu Yunyan with a furious expression as he reached to grab her wrist. "What are you doing? How dare you lay a hand on someone right in front of me? You're the first to show me such disrespect. You've got guts. If you don't kneel down today and serve me well, making sure I'm satisfied, don't even think about walking out of here on your feet." Jiyu Yunyan sneered coldly, her beautiful eyes glinting with frost. She lifted her foot and kicked him squarely in the stomach, sending him flying backward. Then, clenching her fist, she strode quickly to his side and punched him in the face, beating him until he resembled a swollen pig's head. Finally, she grabbed his collar and yanked him up. "Idiot. Happy now?" Chen Yu's eyes widened in disbelief. He couldn't believe he had just been beaten up by a woman. He had never suffered such a big loss in his life. With a vicious expression, he grabbed a nearby wine bottle and hurled it at Jiyu Yunyan, shouting, "Bitch! How dare you hit me?" Jiyu Yunyan dodged effortlessly and gave him a hard kick to the back of his knee. Chen Yu fell to his knees, sliding forward and smashing his face into a chair. Jiyu Yunyan raised her leg and stepped on his head, pressing his face firmly against the chair. Her red lips curled into a dazzling smile, and though her voice was gentle, Chen Yu broke out in a cold sweat. "What's wrong with hitting you? You and your cousin seem equally tired of living. You want me to serve you? Who the hell do you think you are?" Chen Yu's face was distorted against the chair. Disregarding his dignity, he shouted with a darkened expression, "Are the security guards and bodyguards all fucking dead? I paid you to watch a show. Grab that bitch and break her legs." At that moment, dozens of black-clad, sunglasses-wearing bodyguards suddenly entered the entrance of the nightclub. Moving swiftly, they quickly formed 2 rows to separate the crowd. A tall and upright man walked in through the passage cleared by bodyguards, surrounded by a crowd. His expression was icy, his dark eyes sharp, and his black suit impeccably tailored. An aura of chilling coldness radiated from him, as if anyone within 10 meters could be frozen solid. It was actually Zhang Xiqing. "Who dares to lay a finger on my woman?" Chen Yu didn't see what had happened, but upon hearing these words, he erupted in anger and cursed. "So what if I move? Your father?" He scrambled up from the ground while cursing. But as soon as he raised his head, he suddenly froze. He stared blankly at Zhon Siqing, his pupils contracting sharply, and he shuddered, wishing he could bite off his own reckless tongue. Zedjon, fourth young master, you're actually here. Your presence alone brings glory to this humble place. Had I known you were coming, I would have cleared the venue in advance to welcome you. There's just a minor issue here, but I'll have someone handle it right away. He wore a fawning expression, his body slightly hunched, nodding and bowing as if he couldn't wait to kneel and lick Zhon Siqing's shoes. Zhon Siqing gave him a cold glance, his dark eyes radiating chill. Who did you just say you were going to break the legs of? Chen Yu's words abruptly stopped. He stood there trembling, stammering, I. He waved his hands repeatedly, swallowing hard with difficulty. His expression flustered as he spoke. Fourth young master Zhon, there's no such thing, it's all a misunderstanding. How would I dare to lay a hand on your woman? He turned around and slapped Chen Xinghong hard on the back of the head. It's all this idiot's fault, blind to Mount Tai, unable to move his feet at the sight of a beauty, and thus offended. This young lady, I'll deal with him severely right away. Chen Xinghong was slapped so hard by Chen Yu that he staggered and, unable to keep his balance, ended up sprawled face down in front of Jiyu Yunyan. He was completely dumbfounded, turning his head in shock to look at Chen Yu, his tone accusatory. Cousin, why did you hit me? Chapter 15. The one I like is you. Chen Yu angrily kicked him in the butt again. A slap is the least you deserve. After just a few drinks, you lose all sense of propriety. All you do is cause trouble for me every day. How dare you lay a hand on fourth young master Zhon's woman? Hurry up and apologize. Chen Yu's face turned pale, with Zhon Siqing remaining silent. His heart raced with anxiety as he nervously glanced at the dangerously intimidating man, his mouth bitter with fear. Fourth young master Zhon, my cousin, and I truly didn't mean to offend. I'm willing to offer the land in the eastern part of the city as an apology to this young lady and to you. I only hope you'll be magnanimous and not hold it against us. He knew Zhon Siqing had shown interest in that land. By making this offer, it was less about apologizing to Jiyu Union and more about using the situation to curry favor with Zhon Siqing. However, Zhon Siqing turned his gaze to Jiyu Union. Jiyu Union crossed her arms, slightly raised her chin, rolled her eyes, and sneered. What are you looking at me for? Can't you see they're apologizing to you? Zhon Siqing exuded a dangerous aura, his pitch-black eyes gleaming with an almost beast-like aggression as he said in a deep voice, Nyan Nyan, don't mess with me. Jiyu Yunyan's eyes were filled with coldness, her voice dropping 8 degrees as she shook off his arm. Let go, don't touch me. She glanced at Yongjing, 7th senior sister. Let's go. Someone here is too much of an eyesore. Zhon Siqing didn't expect her to leave so abruptly. With a glance at his subordinate, he signaled him to handle Chen Yu's matter, then stormed off with a dark expression to chase after Jiyu Union. Jiyu Union, visibly displeased, shot him a warning look and deliberately said, Don't follow me. If my husband sees you, he'll get angry. Zhon Siqing's face instantly darkened, as gloomy as an impending storm. He couldn't quite describe the turmoil in his heart at that moment, but one thing was certain, he was absolutely furious. He forcefully grabbed Jiyu Yunyan's wrist, his pent-up anger with nowhere to vent. He glared at her coldly, his chest tight with pain, his face tense. Husband, seems you didn't take my words to heart. What words? Jiyu Union raised an eyebrow, slightly amused. Make me sleep with a corpse tonight. Ha, Zhon Siqing. Don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. It's been hours already. Don't tell me you, the mighty President Zhon, can't even handle such a small matter. A flash of anger crossed Zhon Siqing's eyes as he gripped her shoulders. Her expression turned icy. Let go. Don't make me beat you up again. Zhon Siqing's face darkened severely, while Jiyu Union remained utterly indifferent, as if she couldn't care less. Seeing that he refused to let go, she raised her high heels and kicked at him. Zhon Siqing dodged, and Jiyu Union sneered before quickly walking out of the banquet hall's main entrance. Zhon Siqing watched her retreating figure and chased after her, only to suddenly hear a very familiar cry for help from the roadside. Let me go, woo-woo, let me go. Zhon Siqing paused his steps and looked over. Unexpectedly seeing Shen Shujing being pulled by a thug-like man, dressed in a white dress, she stood in the night like a fragile little white flower, seemingly helpless. The man kept groping her with his hands. Jiyu Union stood still, glanced in that direction, and immediately let out a cold laugh. Your beloved is in trouble. Aren't you going to help her? Hearing her words, Jean Siken gave her a deep look. The one I like is you, not her. Jiyu Union raised an eyebrow at him, her crimson lips striking and alluring, yet the words she spoke were like daggers piercing Jean Sichen's heart. Love whoever you want, it's none of my business. If you don't go save her now, she'll be done for soon. Heh, Jean Sichen's face remained expressionless. Although he didn't like Shen Shujing, he couldn't just stand by and watch her being mistreated. Wait here for me. Chapter 16. You still love me, right? Jiyu Union let out a cold snort. Watching expressionlessly as Jean Sicheng punched the thug in the head, he was no match for Jean Sicheng at all. After just a few blows, he was knocked down. Realizing he had met his match, he scrambled to his feet, cursing as he seized the chance to flee. Shen Shujing's eyes were so swollen from crying that she could barely see. She never expected Jean Siken would come to her rescue. Tears streamed down her face like pear blossoms in the rain, her legs too weak to stand for a long while. A flicker of impatience flashed through Jean Sichen's eyes as he turned to look in Jiyu Union's direction, only to find the spot already empty. His mood suddenly grew even more irritable. Shen Shujing, crying, tried to throw herself into his arms. Siken, I knew it. You still care about me after all, otherwise, why would you come to rescue me specifically? Siken, let's get married. I love you, you promised to marry me. I don't blame you for cancelling our wedding before. Jean Siken frowned, sidestepped to avoid her, his expression unreadable, his voice utterly cold. You're drunk, I'll have someone take you home. With that, he turned and left, as if oblivious to the disappointment in Shen Shujing's eyes. Early the next morning, Zhong Shuai went to Jean Sicheng's office and reported the results of his investigation from the previous night. President, I spent the whole night investigating. Your ex-wife. Jean Sicheng gave him a cold glance. Zhong Shuai's scalp tingled. Yes, Madam President. Regarding the information you asked me to investigate about her remarriage, I've searched both domestically and internationally, but found no trace of any information. Jean Sicheng's eyebrows shot up as he suddenly lifted his gaze. His sharp eyes so intense that Zhong Shuai couldn't bear to meet them. Nothing found. Zhong Shuai swallowed hard. I think, Madam might have been lying to you, just saying that to provoke you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have failed to uncover even the slightest clue. Jean Sicheng exhaled softly, a slow smile curling at the corners of his lips, his expression tinged with satisfaction. Order a bouquet of roses. I want to see it before the end of the workday. Zhong Shuai breathed a sigh of relief and went to make the arrangements. Jean Sicheng sat in his office, his eyes gleaming. He knew all along, Nian Nian loved him so much. How could she possibly marry another man? At the end of the workday, Jean Sicheng looked at the large bouquet of roses Zhong Shuai brought over. Though his face remained composed as he took it, the tips of his ears grew slightly warm. A bouquet of 99 roses is so large that holding it in my arms made me feel like a cringy teenager. So I switched to carrying it with one hand and headed straight to Jiyu Union's company entrance. Today, he was dressed in a smoke grey suit, wearing the cufflinks Jiyu Union had given him before, his attire impeccably straight without a single wrinkle. When he wasn't smiling, his face appeared very cold. His eyes utterly indifferent, especially when looking at someone, like an aloof emperor gazing down without a trace of emotion, just standing there quietly. He drew the attention of everyone around him, not to mention the bouquet of roses he was holding. The chilling aura around him didn't seem like he was here to deliver flowers, more like he'd come for revenge. The moment Jiyu Union stepped out of the company building and spotted him, her expression darkened instantly. She clenched her teeth hard before walking toward him step by step. Jean Sicheng stared straight at her, the coldness in his eyes softening slightly as she approached. Nyan Nyan. Jiyu Union asked with undisguised disdain, "What are you doing here?" He lifted his eyelids, handed over the flowers in his hand, and smirked mischievously. "Here, don't all women love flowers the most?" Jiu Union frowned and took a step back, her expression even more disgusted. What's gotten into you? Zhang Xiqing seemed oblivious to her attitude, his gaze deep as he looked at her. Nyan Nyan, I know you only said you'd get married to trick me. You still love me, don't you? Chapter 17. Don't forget you're my woman. Go to the hospital if you're sick. Don't disgust me here. Jiu Union sneered, her face full of impatience as she added, I don't want my husband to misunderstand either. Hearing this, Zhang Xiqing felt a surge of irritation, although he knew she was lying. Every time she mentioned that non-existent husband, he couldn't help but feel his anger rise. Seeing her turn to leave, he grabbed her wrist and thrust the rose into her hand, his eyes slightly reddened. Your husband will only be me. I won't allow anyone else to have you. Jiu Union was utterly annoyed by him. She grabbed the rose and smashed it against his arm, then kicked his leg. She curled her lips into a cold smile. You don't get to decide, my child is already 3 years old. What good is your disapproval? Zhang Xiqing's pale hand gripped the bouquet, his handsome face flashing with a trace of coldness, his eyes concealing a thick murderous intent. Kill him, and you'll be mine alone. Jiu Union was truly enraged this time. Releasing the bouquet, the palm strike she unleashed was fierce, holding nothing back. Zhang Xiqing was forced to counter, yet he still held back somewhat. The fiery red rose petals were crushed into mud, with some remaining fragments swirling up into the air. The scene was as beautiful as if it were filmed for a TV drama. Employees from both Zhengxin and Yingfan companies gasped in shock. Holy shit, our CEO is fighting with his ex-wife again, right downstairs. What's up with these two? Love turned to hate. Otherwise, why would they fight every day at the company in trance? Just now, I saw our CEO bringing flowers, a huge bouquet of roses, at least 99 of them. He barely said 2 words before his ex-wife hit him. Hiss, the former president's wife is really something else. By the way, who do you think will win today between the two of them? Hearing this, everyone scoffed in unison. Is there even a question? It's definitely our former president's wife. Look at our President John. He wouldn't even dare lay a finger on his ex-wife. How clueless must a man be to get hit for giving flowers? Looks like our president has a long road ahead in winning his wife back. No one knows how long Zhang Xiqing's journey to win back his wife will be, but Jiu Union's anger only grows with each passing moment. Her eyes narrowed slightly, the coldness in them almost impossible to conceal. Just as her fury surged to its peak, someone suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her behind them. When Jiu Union saw the man who had appeared out of nowhere, her furious eyes instantly lit up with surprise and delight. The newcomer was her 6th senior brother, Shu Han, who was handsome and refined. Extremely popular among women, he held a Ph.D. in medicine and was exceptionally accomplished in the industry. Shu Han narrowed his eyes at Zhang Xiqing, his expression cold. Xiao Ba. Is this the scoundrel who bullied you before? What does he want by stopping you? Jiu Union nodded, her face showing a hint of impatience. He was spouting some nonsense. Watching Jiu Union stand intimately behind another man, even completely unguarded. Zhang Xiqing's pride in his emotional control instantly crumbled. His eyes quickly became bloodshot and red as he stared intently at Jiu Union for several seconds. His tone dark and low. Jiu Union. Who is he? Jiu Union glanced at him, noticing the hidden fury in his eyes, and deliberately provoked him by taking the 6th brother's arm, coldly taunting. None of your business. The veins on Zhang Xiqing's arm bulged as he narrowed his eyes slightly. None of my business, don't forget. You're my woman. Heh. Shu Han sneered and deliberately put his arm around Jiu Union's shoulder. You two have nothing to do with each other anymore. You divorced Xiao Ba for another woman. Don't tell me you've forgotten. Zhang Xiqing's expression was terrifyingly cold. As he stared at the handsome and elegant man before him, waves of anger surged within him, growing fiercer like a wildfire. Chapter 18. I need to pick up the kids. His handsome face gradually darkened with a chilling intensity. His pitch-black eyes began to redden, filled with overwhelming murderous intent, and he threw a punch straight at Shu Han. Take your hands off. Shu Han was also furious. I think you're just asking for a beating. You married Xiao Ba but didn't take responsibility, and now you dare to harass her so brazenly. Today, I'll teach you a lesson on her behalf. Shu Han coldly caught his punch and then struck back at Zhon Siqing even more fiercely. The two were almost evenly matched, each move ruthless. Whether it was Zhon Siqing or Shu Han, neither of them relied on simple hand-to-hand combat. They also employed ancient martial arts techniques. Zhon Siqing's expression turned fierce, his icy killing intent and hostility surging uncontrollably. The two fought with increasing ferocity. Locked in an intense and seemingly endless battle, the employees from both companies, still watching from upstairs, couldn't help but exclaim in shock, utterly mesmerized by the heart-stopping spectacle. In contrast, GU Union nearby seemed rather languid, knowing the fight wouldn't end anytime soon. She even went to fetch her car, settling inside and resting her chin on her hand as she watched. Gradually, Shu Han began to lose the upper hand, and Zhon Siqing showed no intention of holding back. Swinging a palm strike directly at him, the force of that strike was unstoppable. If it had landed on Shu Han's chest, even if he didn't suffer severe injuries, the outcome wouldn't have been much better. To dodge the attack, Shu Han scraped his arm against a nearby tree. Enough. GU Union stepped between the two, blocking Zhon Siqing's movement. Shu Han's arm had a patch of broken skin, with a little blood seeping out and staining his shirt. GU Union raised her head to look at Zhon Siqing, anger surging within her. Zhon Siqing, I stopped liking you a long time ago. Stop being so full of yourself and saying those ridiculous things. From the day you divorced me, you became part of my past. What do you mean by saying you like me? Didn't you promise to marry Shen Shujing 20 years ago? Since we're divorced, stay away from me. Don't make me look down on you. What's the point of clinging to me now? It's just a joke. GU Union's indifferent gaze pierced Zhon Siqing's heart like a sharp sword, and every word she spoke made his eyes grow colder. The fury in the man's eyes had surged to a terrifying level. He took a step forward, his face dark with anger, and gripped her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze without allowing the slightest evasion. What did you say? His tone was as icy as frozen frost. GU Yunyang slapped his hand away with a sharp sound and sneered, Are you deaf? Can't you understand human speech? She pulled Shu Han into the car, leaving Zhon Siqing behind with a cold and gloomy expression. Zhon Siqing's handsome face was clouded with gloom as he strode forward and blocked the car door GU Yunyang was trying to close. The door, driven by inertia, pinched his hand, but the man seemed not to feel any pain. GU Union calmly met his gaze with an indifferent expression. Zhon Siqing's icy stare swept over Shu Han as he pressed against the car door. Even if you're angry with me, there should be limits. Angry with you? Don't disgust me with such words. What reason do I have to be angry with you? Let go. My child is getting out of school. I need to pick them up. Zhon Siqing's expression darkened, the veins on his hand pressing against the car door visibly bulging as his pitch-black eyes fixed on her. Must you say such things to provoke me? GU Union smiled, her expression full of charm as she flicked his hand away from the car door. Really? That's great. If you're unhappy, then I'm happy. With a loud bang, she shut the car door firmly, started the car without hesitation, and drove off with her sixth senior brother. Zhon Siqing stood still, suddenly breaking into a smile. His deep gaze fixed on GU Union's car as it sped away into the distance. Chapter 19. Must hook the CEO. GU Union had no idea that Zhon Siqing had been staring at her car for a long time. She had just arrived home with her sixth senior brother when Yongjing called. Upon hearing that Shu Han was also there, she decisively rushed over. It had been a while since the senior brother and junior sister had seen each other, and when they met, they still couldn't resist teasing each other. When Yongjing heard that he had actually lost the fight with Zhon Siqing, she burst into laughter on the spot and said somewhat gleefully, You even lost a fight meant to stand up for little BA. You're such a failure as a senior brother. If Master finds out, he'll definitely punish you by sending you back to the mountain for hard training. Shu Han adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses with no lenses on the bridge of his nose, his expression calm. My strength doesn't lie in martial arts. GU Union sat to the side, watching the two of them bicker with a smile on her face, completely forgetting the displeasure that encountering Zhon Siqing had brought her. From what she knew of Zhon Siqing, after she had said such harsh words, he definitely wouldn't appear before her again to seek discomfort. Sure enough, for several days in a row, everything was peaceful, and GU Union completely put Jean Seeching out of her mind. That day, while she was in her office reviewing documents, her assistant Dai Lei suddenly called on the internal line, saying that Shen Changhai, the chairman of Shensha Real Estate, wanted to meet with her. Hearing this, GU Union immediately understood. After the whole broken engagement incident, Shen Changhai probably realized he couldn't rely on the Zhon family anymore, so now he was turning his attention to their Zhongshan investment. She curled her lips into a playful arc, her bright eyes crinkling with a meaningful smile. Meet, of course we'll meet. But when we meet is up to me. Keep him waiting for a couple of days. When he's about to lose patience, have him come to the company on Wednesday morning. Oh, and tell him to bring his daughter Shen Shujing along. Dai Lei's voice on the other end of the phone showed no trace of surprise as she calmly replied, "Understood, I'll relay your instructions to him as requested." After receiving the confirmation from Dai Lei, Shen Changhai let out a long sigh of relief, but soon a sly smile appeared on his face. Although no one in the entire city of Hua knew who the CEO of Zhongshan Investment was, one thing was certain: he was a man, after all. Zhongshan Investment had already gained international fame when it was overseas. The CEO of such a massive corporation could never be a woman. Why else would someone request to meet him and specifically ask him to bring his daughter along? As a man himself, he understood all too well. Surely the other party had seen his daughter at some point and, captivated by her beauty, had developed certain intentions. Otherwise, why would they insist on his daughter's presence just for a business collaboration discussion? Shen Changhai's heart burned with excitement. The wild joy on his face was utterly uncontrollable. If his daughter could latch onto the president of Zhenshin, wouldn't the entire Huaju be at his mercy? Ever since Shen Shujing was publicly rejected at the wedding, Shen Changhai had been fuming, thinking she was useless. How could a duck in hand still fly away? But now, all his previous dissatisfaction has turned into joy. If Shen Shujing hadn't been dumped by Zhon Seeching, such a great opportunity wouldn't have come along now. Shen Changhai couldn't help but rush to knock on Shen Shujing's door, telling her about the matter and instructing her to perform well. Shen Shujing, who was initially unwilling to go out due to embarrassment, immediately perked up when she heard about such a good opportunity. She sneered, confidently stating, "Dad, don't worry. I'll definitely hook the CEO of Zhongshan and make Zhon Siken and Jiu Yunyan, that dog couple, look bad. Just wait, she's determined to avenge herself." On Wednesday morning, the father and daughter got ready early and arrived at Zhongshan Group. Shen Shujing had even booked a spa session and styled herself specially for today. Just as Jiu Union parked the car, she turned her head and saw Shen Shujing stepping out of the car next to hers, holding Shen Changhai's arm. She stood there gracefully in a long apricot-colored gown and 15-centimeter stiletto heels, swaying with every step, so exaggerated it looked like a celebrity walking the red carpet. Chapter 20. Definitely interested in you. Jiu Yunyan's lips twitched, her mind filled with question marks. Thinking Shen Shujing's outfit must be a sign of mental illness, Shen Shujing also caught sight of Jiu Yunyan from the corner of her eye. She noticed her wearing a black women's suit with the sleeves casually rolled up to her elbows, holding a file folder in her hand and sporting a pair of white flat sneakers. She froze for a moment, then turned to say something to Shen Changhai, who had been keeping his head down. Shen Changhai also glanced in their direction. Jiu Union flashed a mocking smile and averted her gaze, deciding not to bother with the two clowns for now. However, Shen Changhai and his daughter had no intention of letting her off so easily. Shen Shujing swayed her slender waist and reached Jiu Union in just a few steps. Well, if it isn't Jiu Union, what a coincidence. She was clearly here to mock and humiliate Jiu Union, not giving her a chance to react. She disdainfully looked Jiu Union up and down, then theatrically covered her mouth and let out a light chuckle. "Doesn't Seeching like you? Why doesn't he buy you some decent clothes? You're dressed like an insurance salesman on the street." Jiu Union slightly furrowed her brows. To be honest, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed for Shen Shujing. Really, it takes years of brain damage to come up with something like that. Shen Shujing, holding Shen Changhai's arm, noticed Jiyu Yunyan's silence and felt as if her punch had landed on cotton, her expression turning displeased. Suddenly, as if struck by a thought, she lifted her head haughtily and declared, "Oh, by the way, you're an employee of Zhenxin, right? Our family is about to collaborate with your CEO." Beside her, Shen Changhai also wore a smug expression. He tilted his head back, looking down at Jiyu Yunyan through his nostrils, his attitude downright arrogant. "We must not only cooperate with Zhenxin, but your president specifically instructed my daughter to come here. You should understand what this means, right, Jiyu Yunyan? Do you think you won just because you caused a scene at Jingjing and Zhon Xiqing's wedding before? My daughter, Shen Changhai's daughter, will always be the most beautiful and dazzling one. Soon, she will become the president's wife of Zhenxin. I advise you to be sensible and pack your bags to leave on your own, so you won't be embarrassed when you're fired." Jiyu Yunyan didn't speak, just smiled with her arms crossed. Just as she was about to burst into laughter, the elevator door dinged open. "Bye-bye." Jiyu Yunyan waved at them cheerfully and walked in. Shen Shujing and her father were standing quite far from the elevator door, especially since Shen Shujing's gown, though elegant, made walking rather inconvenient. Shen Changhai couldn't just leave his daughter behind, so he shouted at Jiyu Yunyan, "Jiyu Yunyan, come down. We won't allow you to ride the elevator with us." Jiyu Yunyan pressed the elevator's close button, glanced at them both indifferently, and slowly curled her lips. "Buy some walnuts to nourish your brains, or even 6 Shen corporations would be ruined by you." Shen Shujing's face instantly turned pale with anger. "Jiyu Yunyan, what did you say?" She lifted her skirt to walk over but stumbled, landing hard on her bottom. Shen Changhai had to go help her up, which caused both of them to miss the elevator. Jiyu Yunyan entered the office, where her assistant, Dai Lei, was already waiting. Seeing her, he immediately picked up his notebook and followed. Reporting her schedule for the day by her side, "The reception just informed me that Shen Changhai and his daughter from Shinsha Real Estate have arrived. Does the CEO want to see them now?" Jiyu Yunyan lowered her eyes to review the documents handed to her by Dai Lei, not even looking up. "Let them wait first." Shen Changhai and his daughter waited until 9:30 before they were finally allowed upstairs, looking at the exquisitely and lavishly decorated top floor of Zhenxin Investment. Shen Shujing tightly gripped her father Shen Changhai's arm, her expression tense. Shen Changhai, however, was quite confident and whispered, "Don't be afraid, since you've been invited here, it must mean he's interested in you. Make sure to perform well later and try to win his affection this time." Dai Lei, who had already approached the vicinity, curled her lips into a mocking smile upon hearing this. How audacious! She composed her expression, not letting the father and daughter notice anything unusual. "Mr. Shen and Miss Shen from Shinsha Real Estate, right, our CEO is now available. Please follow me." Chapter 21. "Why are you the CEO of Zhenxin?" Shen Shujing's high heels made no sound as they sank into the thick carpet. The closer she got to the CEO's office, the more she found herself holding her breath. If this mysterious CEO of Zhenxin Investments, whom no one had ever seen, could become one of her conquests, her gaze fell upon that frosted glass door. Unable to suppress a mix of nervousness and excitement, a faint blush rising to her small face, Dai Lei pushed the door open and then stepped aside. "Mr. Shen, Miss Shen, please come in." Shen Shujing could hardly wait. Her heart felt like it was about to leap out of her throat, her eyes sparkling with barely contained excitement. She lifted her hand to smooth the hair cascading over her shoulders, wondering what the CEO of Zhenxin looked like, though she'd heard he was quite young. She straightened her back, her face adopting an aloof and aristocratic demeanor, as if untouched by worldly concerns. Walking beside Shen Changhai, she aimed to present the most flawless version of herself in the other's eyes, her lips curving into a smile she had practiced in the mirror 800 times at home. She raised her head with the most graceful posture, about to greet him, but the moment her gaze landed on the person behind the desk, her expression instantly cracked. Fair-skinned with peerless beauty, her exquisite face wore a faint, mocking smile. This was unmistakably Jiyu Yunyan, Shen Shujing could hardly control her emotions, crying out inappropriately, "Why is it you?" GU Union sat in the spacious executive chair, casually capping the pen and placing it in the nearby holder before leaning back lazily. "Hi tilde, long time no see. This is impossible." Shen Shujing simply couldn't accept it. The president of Zhenshin Corporation was actually her. Without a care for her 15-centimeter high heels, she swiftly brushed past Shen Changhai and strode right up to GU Union, slamming her palm down on the desk. "GU Union, what kind of underhanded trick are you playing now? Where is the real president of Zhenshin? How dare you sit in this seat? Do you even deserve to be here?" GU Union's beautiful eyes swept coolly over Shen Shujing's face before she suddenly smiled, propping her chin up with one hand. "I'm not worthy. But you are. I don't believe it. This can't be true." Shen Shujing's hands trembled with anger as she pointed at GU Union, her face filled with disbelief as she turned to look at Dai Lei. "By colluding with her to make a fool of me, aren't you afraid I'll report to your CEO about your dereliction of duty? Letting an ordinary employee enter his office and touch his belongings without authorization." Dai Lei couldn't help but roll her eyes inelegantly. "Miss Shen, is there anything wrong with our CEO sitting in his own seat? Who do you think you are? Do you really believe our CEO would waste his precious time just to play games with you?" Shen Shujing desperately wanted to snap back viciously, but fury and humiliation left her mind blank. Her lips trembled so much that she couldn't utter a single word. "This can't be true. You must be conspiring to trick me. How could a country bumpkin like her possibly be Zhenshin's CEO?" GU Union wiped the expression from her face and spoke coldly. "Shen Shujing, whether I'm Zhenshin's CEO or not isn't for you to decide. What you need to understand is that you came here today to discuss investment cooperation. I'm very busy and don't have time to waste with you." She glanced at Dai Lei expressionlessly. "Please ask them to leave, then notify the Overseas Investment Department for a meeting." Dai Lei immediately understood, just as she was about to speak. Shen Changhai beside her suddenly snapped out of his daze. He gritted his teeth hard, his face turning a shade of green deeper than a cucumber's hue. His somewhat murky eyes glared at GU Union, his chest heaving with anger. At this point, he fully understood what GU Union meant. She agreed to see him and even asked him to bring his daughter along, all for the purpose of humiliating them. Just the thought of the company's debt made his face turn livid with anger. Yet he had no choice but to suppress his rage and lower his head. After all, he didn't want the company to go bankrupt. He needed Zhenshin's investment. Chapter 22, GU Union is just playing with us. He quickly stepped forward and grabbed the emotionally unstable Shen Shujing, then forced a smile at GU Union. "Hehe, I never expected GU Union to be the CEO of Zhenshin. Truly surprising. So young and accomplished. I was just thinking how the CEO of Zhenshin refuses almost everyone's requests. And hardly anyone in the circle has the privilege of meeting you. Why would I be so special? Turns out we're actually acquaintances." Shujing, as you know, has been a bit emotionally unstable lately due to some recent stress. She didn't mean to provoke you intentionally. Please be magnanimous and don't take it to heart. I'll have her apologize to you right now." Upon hearing Shen Changhai's words, Shen Shujing stared at him in disbelief. "Dad, what are you saying? You want me to apologize to her? Are you out of your mind?" Shen Changhai's face darkened instantly. "Shouldn't you be apologizing? President GU didn't say anything. Yet you were so rude to her. Is this how I raised you at home?" "Dad," Shen Shujing's eyes turned red with anger. "Apologize." Shen Changhai's gaze at Shen Shujing carried a hint of threat. Shen Shujing clenched her teeth, her eyes reddening before she finally lowered her head unwillingly, her tone filled with reluctance. "GU Union, I shouldn't have said those things to you this morning. I apologize." Shen Changhai rubbed his hands together and cleared his throat lightly. "President GU, you see, Shujing has already apologized about the investment." GU Union curled his lips and let out a light chuckle. "Apologizing so easily? I thought you'd at least have some backbone. How disappointing." TSK, a vein throbbed violently on Shen Changhai's forehead, his eyes filled with a fierce glare, but under the circumstances, he had no choice but to yield. He forced a smile. "President GU, both Shujing and I have offended you greatly, and we sincerely apologize. Please, for the sake of our past acquaintance." Before he could finish, GU Union gave a faint smile. "Chairman Shen, there's no need to say more. Business is business. After all, I actually intended to invest in Shensha real estate. But who told you to scold me so harshly this morning? I'm someone who can tolerate anything except being taken advantage of. So, as for this investment, don't even think about it. Even if Zhenxing had money to throw away on the streets, you wouldn't see a single cent of it." Shen Changhai's face turned alternately green and purple, having dominated the business world for so many years. How could he not realize that he had been played by GU Union? He nearly jumped up on the spot, but for the sake of the company, he held back and tried to make one last effort. "President GU, but Shen Shujing couldn't hold back any longer. She grabbed Shen Changhai's arm and cut him off. "Dad, she's just trying to mess with us, to make fools of us. Don't beg her. I refuse to believe we can't find another investor besides Zhenxin." GU Union glanced at her and sneered. "You think too highly of yourself. Do you know how much I earn in a minute? Wasting my time just to watch you make a fool of yourself. Do you even deserve that?" Looking at Shen Shujing's aggrieved expression, on the verge of tears, her mood soared to the point of exhilaration. She was toying with them. "So what?" Shen Shujing glared at GU Union with reddened eyes and said fiercely, "Just you wait." She refused to believe that she, the esteemed young lady of the Shen family from Huaju, could lose to some lowly country girl. Failed to secure investment and endured humiliation all morning, Shen Changhai angrily left Zhengshan and immediately took Shen Shujing to Yingfan Group next door to find John Siqing. The receptionist certainly recognized Shen Changhai and Shen Shujing. After all, Shen Shujing had almost become their CEO's wife. They were simply allowed to go upstairs directly. As soon as Shen Shujing saw John Siqing, she burst into tears. She had dressed meticulously today, and with her crying, she looked pitifully delicate, like a pear blossom bathed in rain. Yet, John Siqing acted as if he didn't see her at all, completely ignoring her presence. Shen Changhai couldn't help feeling annoyed at his indifferent demeanor, but remembering his purpose for coming, he restrained himself. Chapter 23. Shen Shujing commits suicide. He shamelessly brought up the matter of wanting Yingfan investment with John Siqing. "Siqing, considering the personal relationship between our two families, please think of it as helping your uncle. As long as the Shen family gets through this rough patch, I definitely won't let you down." John Siqing's expression remained indifferent, showing no regard for Shen Changhai's face as he bluntly stated, "This has nothing to do with personal feelings. Your Shen Group is just a hollow shell now, destined to collapse sooner or later. No matter how much money you pour in, it's merely prolonging the inevitable. Chairman Shen, instead of dragging it out like this, you might as well file for bankruptcy protection directly." Shen Changhai gritted his teeth, glaring at John Siqing. "Siqing, must you be so ruthless? After all, our Shujing nearly married you. You humiliated our Shen family at the wedding and betrayed Shujing. Yet I never made things difficult for you." Before he could finish, John Siqing shot him a cold glare. "Make things difficult for me? Don't think I've forgotten how you had Shen Shujing set me up. Just because I didn't take action doesn't mean I wasn't angry. Let me make this clear, if it weren't for GU Union's intervention, I wouldn't have let you off so easily." Shen Changhai shuddered, involuntarily taking a step back. Shen Shujing, hearing him mention GU Union, felt deeply wronged and suddenly spoke with resentment. "Siqing, how could you do this? My father just wanted you to help Shen Corporation through a difficult time. We didn't deliberately set you up. We had no other choice. As long as we can get through this, not only will your investment not lose money, but it might even turn a profit. Why must you be so cold and heartless? Wasn't it enough to humiliate me in front of all the guests at your wedding? Now you want to drive my family to ruin. Only projects with potential and profitability qualify as investments." As for Shen Corporation, he curled his lips slightly. Though he said nothing more, the implication was crystal clear. Shen Shujing never expected John Siqing to be so repeatedly heartless toward her. She could no longer hold back and abruptly stood up, her eyes reddening. "John Siqing, I misjudged you. How can you be so cold-blooded and ruthless? Do you really have to drive me to death before you'll let our family go? Fine. You've succeeded." After throwing out these seemingly incoherent words, Shen Shujing ran out of his office in tears. Shen Changhai realized they wouldn't achieve their goal today and left as well. Seeing the former would-be CEO's wife crying so heartbrokenly, Zhong Shuai couldn't help but sneak a glance at Zhang Xiqing, only to find his expression hadn't changed at all. Zhong Shuai couldn't resist speaking up. "CEO, aren't you going after her?" Zhang Xiqing gave him a cool glance. "Do you have too much free time?" Zhong Shuai immediately shut his mouth, however, before the afternoon arrived. Zhang Xiqing suddenly received a call from Shen Shujing's mother, her voice choked with sobs. "I know this request puts you in a difficult position, but Xiqing, could you come to the hospital to see Jingjing? The child couldn't bear it and attempted suicide if the housekeeper hadn't found her in time. The doctor said she has very little will to live and still shows suicidal tendencies. Xiqing, I beg you, for the sake of a mother's plea, please come and see her." Zhang Xiqing frowned. Reluctant, but still agreed. Some things needed to be made clear. When he arrived at the hospital ward, Shen Shujing was sitting on the bed in a hospital gown, her face pale as she stared out the window. One hand was receiving an 4 drip, while the other wrist was wrapped in several thick layers of gauze. The extent of the injury wasn't visible, but judging by the bandaging, it must have been quite severe. Mrs. Shen was sitting by the bedside, and her expression softened the moment she saw Zhang Xiqing. "Xiqing, you're here. Please help me persuade Jingjing." Her voice choked up, as if she couldn't continue, and she quickly turned her face away. "I'll step out to give you two some space. She won't say a word as long as I'm here." Shen Shujing slowly turned her head, her gaze settling on Zhang Xiqing. Her reddened eyes were still slightly swollen, and before she could speak, tears began to fall. "You don't care about me at all. So why bother coming to see me now?" Chapter 24. Don't you have any feelings for me? Zhang Xiqing wore a solid-colored shirt beneath an indigo suit, the buttons fastened meticulously. His dark eyes showed no trace of emotion, and an icy chill radiated from his entire being. A trace of infatuation flickered in Shen Shujing's eyes as she gazed at him. She had gone to such great lengths to push Jiyu Union away from his side. How could she possibly let go so easily? Yet she was convinced that Zhang Xiqing must have feelings for her. He was merely bewitched by that wretched Jiyu Union. Otherwise, why would he rush over the moment he heard she had attempted suicide? Seeing Zhang Xiqing remain silent, she bit her lip, and soon tears streamed silently down her face. Shen Shujing had a very classically elegant oval face with pure features. And when she deliberately put on a crying act, she looked exceptionally beautiful, especially when her eyes welled up with tears. 9 out of 10 men would be moved by her. "Since you don't want me anymore, what's the point of me living? You must be quite disappointed to see I'm still alive, aren't you?" She gave a pitiful smile, her tone gentle, but her eyes brimmed with sorrow. Taking a deep breath, she leaned back against the headboard and closed her eyes slightly. Her voice thick with unshakable grief. "It's fine. I'll die soon and won't bother you anymore. I've annoyed you enough." Zhang Xiqing slightly tensed his jaw, his gaze falling on Shen Shujing's trembling shoulders. He let out a low, mocking laugh, his terrifyingly dark eyes devoid of any warmth. His eyes brimmed with thick sarcasm as he said, "If you're going to die, make it quick. If you can't do it yourself, I can have someone help you." Shen Shujing turned to look at him in shock. Her already pale face now completely drained of color, she couldn't hold back a sob, her eyes brimming with disbelief. "Sai Chen, what are you saying?" Zhang Xiqing stared at her coldly, his entire body radiating an icy aura that made him seem unapproachable. "What do you think?" "Shen Shujing, don't take me for a fool. I came here today just to warn you. Do whatever you want to yourself, but don't you dare trouble Nyan Nyan." Shen Shujing was completely stunned, forgetting even to maintain her facial expression as she stared at Zhai Xiqing in shock. The mockery in his eyes made her heart ache so much she could barely breathe. "Nyan Nyan, Nyan Nyan, it's always Jiyu Union. I've given so much for you, even walked through the gates of hell. Yet the first thing you care about when you see me is still her. Xiqing, do you even have a heart?" Zhai Xiqing looked at her coldly, his eyes filled with an unshakable darkness. as if even the corners of his eyes radiated disgust. "That's right, I have no heart when it comes to you, Shen Shujing. Don't play any more petty tricks in front of me. If there's a next time, I'll have someone come collect your corpse directly." Shen Shujing's tearful voice suddenly halted. She hadn't expected Zhang Xiqing to speak to her so coldly. Her deliberately feigned pitiful and fragile expression nearly crumbled as she widened her eyes and shouted at him, "Are you even human? How could you treat me like this? After all these years, even raising a dog would have fostered some affection, let alone the deeper bonds between us. Xiqing, search your heart and tell me, haven't you developed even the slightest bit of feeling for me?" Zhang Xiqing's thin lips curled into a cold smirk. He impatiently tugged at his collar, his gaze filled with irritation as he looked at her. "No, I don't believe it." Shen Shujing burst into tears, her eyes reddening as she gazed at him with sorrowful, glistening eyes. "If you really had nothing to hide, why would you come today? If it was just to warn me, you could have said it over the phone. There was no need for you to come in person. Sai Chen, you love me. I'm in your heart, aren't I?" Instead of giving her the response she longed for, Zhang Xiqing's cold words felt like a knife plunged into her chest. "Shen Shujing, know your limits. I won't." She raised her hand to pull out the 4-tube, directly threw off the blanket and climbed down from the bed, grabbing Zhang Xiqing's sleeve with a somewhat frantic expression on her face. Chapter 25. She hates you. You can't do this to me. You promised to marry me. Everyone knows I'm the woman you love most. If it weren't for GU Union, I would have been your wife long ago. You do love me. If you didn't, why would you have divorced GU Union for me back then? The temperature around Zhang Xiqing instantly plummeted, his cold eyes gathering a heavy gloom that reflected a sinister light. He pried open Shen Shujing's fingers one by one, then took out a handkerchief to meticulously wipe his fingers before tossing it into the trash bin. His gaze at Shen Shujing was no different from looking at a dead person, his tone dripping with unmistakable impatience and indifference. "Mistaking friendship for love in my youth and divorcing GU Union was the only mistake I've ever made in this life. The person I've loved from beginning to end has always been GU Union. Shen Shujing, my patience has its limits. You should know the consequences of angering me." Meeting his gaze, Shen Shujing's mind went completely blank. Her entire body seemed frozen stiff by that single glance from him, watching Zhang Xiqing turn to leave after uttering those words. She suddenly snapped back to reality. Understanding Zhang Xiqing's nature, she knew if she truly let him walk away today, there would never be any connection between them again. Gritting her teeth, she immediately threw herself at Zhang Xiqing from behind, attempting to wrap her arms around his waist while pleading desperately, "No, Xiqing, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Please don't treat me like this. I'll be obedient from now on. Please don't abandon me, okay?" Even though his back was turned, Zhang Xiqing seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. With just a slight shift of his body, he made Shen Shujing's lunge miss its mark. His eyes were filled with icy coldness, and the gaze he directed at her was terrifyingly frigid. It was as if his patience with her had run out. Not a shred of it remaining. Facing such an expression from him, Shen Shujing froze completely. Zhang Xiqing gave her a cold glance, his gaze filled with disdain as if she were trash. Then pulled open the ward door and walked out. Shen Shujing's eyes darkened, heavy resentment and jealousy accumulating in her chest, suffocating her. Her eyes flickered with malice and madness, twisting her originally pale, haggard, and even somewhat delicate face into an extreme contortion. Watching his straight and upright figure, she suddenly let out a bitter laugh. "Zhang Xiqing, isn't it just because GU Union is now the president of Zhengxin, and she can be more helpful to your career? While our Shun family is in crisis and can no longer provide you with any assistance, that you're abandoning me?" Zhang Xiqing's footsteps paused, and a trace of surprise flickered imperceptibly in his eyes. He turned his head and gave Shen Shujing a deep look. Never expecting that GU Union was actually the president of Zhengxin, Zhang Xiqing twitched the corner of his mouth and let out a low chuckle. No matter what her identity was, he loved her, so he would never let go. Seeing Zhang Xiqing like this, Shen Shujing thought he had taken her words to heart. The madness in her eyes faded slightly, and she regretted her earlier hysterical tone, which had made her appear so unseemly, she wiped the tears from her face, and her emotions suddenly became eerily calm, though waves of hatred surged within her. Her expression softened, her voice softened, choked with sorrow as she pleaded, "Do you think she would care for you wholeheartedly like I do? Sicheng, don't forget, she hates you. How could she possibly help you in your career? She would never truly accept you again. I'm the only one who truly loves you." Zhang Sicheng curled his lips into a cold smile, his tone icy. "Do you love me, or do you love my status? You know the answer, Shen Shujing. Don't pretend to be so innocent and noble. Why did you come to me 5 years ago? We both know the truth." Shen Shujing's breath hitched, as if someone had gripped her throat. Meeting his frigid gaze, she suddenly found herself unable to utter any excuses. Chapter 26. Who is this little girl Jiyu Union? After a long pause, she finally burst into tears, sobbing, "No, no, Sicheng, I truly love you. You'd better think carefully about your actions," Zhang Sicheng said coldly before turning and walking away without hesitation. Watching his resolute retreating figure, Shen Shujing could no longer contain herself. She suddenly grabbed the glass vase beside her and smashed it to the ground. The wound on her wrist, which she had ruthlessly cut earlier to make the scene more convincing, split open again, staining the bandages with fresh blood. She clutched her wrist in agony, her face contorted as she let out a furious scream. "Ah, Jiyu Yunyan, I hate you." But all the sounds inside the hospital room were completely muffled by the closed door. Outside the door, Mrs. Shun, who had deliberately stepped away, was stunned to see Zhang Sicheng emerge so quickly. She hurried over, intending to stop Zhang Sicheng and ask for an explanation. Yet Zhang Sicheng acted as if he hadn't seen her at all, not even sparing her a glance from the corner of his eye, as he strode swiftly in a certain direction. Madame Shun followed that direction with her gaze, only to see Jiyu Union. She clenched her teeth hard, her face contorted with anger and resentment. That little wretch had already divorced him. Yet she was still clinging to Zhang Sicheng and wouldn't let go. No, she had to go tell her daughter right away. Jiyu Union was walking quickly while holding Xiaoxing, who had her arms wrapped around her neck, feeling extremely uncomfortable. Xiaoxing whimpered softly in a milky voice and called out weakly, "Mommy." Jiyu Union's lips pressed into a tight line, her anxiety overwhelming, gently patting Xiaoxing's back and feeling the scorching heat radiating from her little body. Jiyu Union's eyes reddened, moist with urgency. Her steps remained steady, even as sweat broke out all over her body from the frantic rush. Yet, to comfort Xiaoxing, she deliberately softened her voice. He affectionately kissed her forehead and whispered comforting words into Little Star's ear. "Mommy's here, Little Star. Just hold on a little longer. We're already at the hospital, and you'll see the doctor soon. Once the pain flies away, our Little Star won't feel bad anymore. Yeah." Because of the fever, Little Star's voice had already become hoarse. She blinked her eyes, and 2 crystal-clear teardrops rolled down from her already hazy, large eyes. The pitiful sight made Jiyu Union's heart ache with pain. "Little Star, be good. Pain fly away." She gently nuzzled against Jiyu Union's neck, whimpering twice, and spoke weakly with little strength. "Mommy, don't worry, Little Star can still bear it." Jiyu Union's beautiful and delicate brows and eyes instantly tinged with a hint of red. After registering, she clutched the medical record book and swiftly headed towards the emergency room. However, her path was suddenly blocked by someone. Jiyu Union frowned slightly, not even bothering to look at the person, and simply sidestepped to pass by. Yet the person blocked her path once again. Jiyu Union was forced to halt her steps. A trace of anger colored her face, the suppressed fury in her voice like a volcano on the verge of eruption. She abruptly raised her head, her gaze icy. "Move." Before she could utter the last word, she realized the person blocking her way was none other than Zhang Sicheng. His face dark with anger, the anger on her face grew even more intense. Completely ignoring the displeasure and coldness on his face, her red lips parted slightly, her delicate face tightly drawn, as she spat out a crisp word, "Get lost." Zhang Sicheng didn't move, his brows furrowing into a deep crease, his pitch-black eyes fixed directly on the child in Jiyu Union's arms as he coldly demanded, "Whose child is this?" Ji Union had no patience to engage with him, casting him a frosty glance. Those beautiful fox-like eyes were filled with impatience and chill, and even her usually tantalizing, hook-laden voice seemed laced with ice. She raised an eyebrow, looking directly at him, and replied coldly, "My daughter." Chapter 27. "I wouldn't harm a child." Zhang Xiqing's face darkened, his heart feeling as if it had been slashed by a knife. A fire seemed to ignite in his chest, spreading wildly and rapidly consuming everything. He turned his head with a cold glance, his entire body radiating a surge of murderous intent. The depths of his dark, unfathomable eyes were terrifyingly black as he stared fixedly at Ji Union, like a large predator suddenly unleashing an intense aura of danger and aggression just before the hunt. How dare this woman? How dare she actually find another man behind his back? He wished he could strangle both the mother and daughter right now. But when his gaze fell upon the worry and anxiety between Ji Union's brows, his overwhelming rage damnably vanished. He actually reached out towards Little Star, whose face was flushed red. Ji Union instinctively took 2 defensive steps back, glaring at him warily. "What do you think you're doing, Zhang Xiqing? Don't you dare lay a finger on my daughter." Her voice was icy, her distrust completely unconcealed, and even carried a sharp, piercing edge from tension. Zhang Xiqing's expression darkened instantly, the dangerous aura he'd just suppressed suddenly erupting. His temples were slightly bulging, his chest heaved violently, and his voice dropped an octave colder. "Give it to me." Ji Union looked at him suspiciously, her charming and affectionate eyes filled with vigilance, as if she could fight him to the death at any moment. Zhang Xiqing gave a bitter smile, his eyes darkening with a heavy tinge of bloodlust, his voice dripping with menace. The terrifying black depths of his pupils were clearly burning with rage. "What, afraid I'll kill her? Don't worry, I wouldn't stoop so low as to harm a child." Ji Union narrowed her eyes slightly, carefully sizing him up. The temperature of Little Star in her arms was getting higher, and he had even started crying unconsciously. "Zhang Xiqing, don't push me to hate you." Without another word, Zhang Xiqing grabbed her arm and said coldly, "Come with me. I'll take you to see the director." The hospital was crowded, and even the emergency room had a long line. It would probably take at least half an hour before they could be seen. Ji Union looked at the feverish Little Star in her arms, gritted her teeth, and did not resist. However, she failed to notice the freshly mopped floor beneath her feet. Stumbling, she fell forward while holding Little Star. Zhang Xiqing quickly turned around and caught both her and Little Star in his arms. As soon as Ji Union steadied herself, she glared at him and snapped, "Don't touch me or the child." Zhang Xiqing let out a cold laugh, noticing her pale face and the layer of sweat on her forehead, which only made him feel more stifled inside. The irritation made his entire body tense up, as if he could explode at the slightest touch. He reached out and forcefully grabbed Xiaoxing's legs. "Give it to me." Ji Union tried to avoid him but was blocked. "If she gets dropped while you're holding her, she'll either be crippled or seriously injured." Zhang Xiqing's warm breath brushed against her face, making her frown in disgust. "No need, I'll be careful, don't pretend to be kind." As Ji Union finished speaking, Xiaoxing affectionately nuzzled her neck, pouting with pale lips and whimpering pitifully before burying his face into the crook of her neck. Ji Union lowered her voice, gently patted her back, and softly hummed. At this moment, she radiated an intense maternal love, displaying a tenderness he had never seen before. Zhang Xiqing's expression turned extremely grim, his sharp eyes cold and piercing like a hawk's, but he said nothing more and strode toward the elevator. Neither of them spoke in the elevator. Through the smooth walls on both sides, Zhang Xiqing couldn't help but notice the Little Star in Ji Union's arms, a tiny bundle, soft and emitting a faint milky fragrance, nestled lightly in Ji Union's embrace, looking so beautiful it seemed almost unreal. Like a delicate doll. Chapter 28. Is your man dead? He had originally thought he would feel disgust toward this child, born from some unknown man and Ji Union, yet for some reason, he found her quite adorable. He frowned, feeling an inexplicable discomfort in his heart, as if he had lost something very important. If he and Ji Union hadn't divorced 5 years ago, their child would probably be even older than this one. This child looked very much like Gu Union. Especially in terms of divine charm, it was as if he were a carbon copy of little Gu Union. His chubby little face was so adorable it seemed like a single touch could melt him. His heart softened involuntarily. And as if afraid of startling the child, he instinctively tried to make himself as gentle as possible. However, when his peripheral vision caught Gu Union's wary expression, his demeanor turned cold again. His heart ached with both pain and anger. A cold, indifferent gaze fell upon her as he let out a mocking laugh. Only the two of them were in the elevator. Gu Union lifted his eyelids to glance at him. Her own child was so seriously ill, and she was extremely nervous. Yet this man was still laughing there. What does he mean? Taking pleasure in her misfortune? Gu Union gritted her teeth, glared at him, and asked angrily, "What are you laughing at? What? Did the man who had a child with you die? The child is sick, and you're the only one bringing her to the hospital." Hearing his words, Gu Union also smiled, speaking meaningfully. "Yes, you're right, he's dead indeed, turned to ashes, not even bones left." Zhang Siqing frowned. Not missing the fleeting hint of mockery in Gu Union's eyes, he opened his mouth to say something, but the elevator doors suddenly opened. A hospital bed was pushed in from outside, accompanied by the patient's family and a nurse. Gu Union was forced to squeeze into the corner, and Zhang Siqing turned slightly to shield her from the crowd behind. The two stood extremely close, Gu Union's back pressed against the elevator wall, with his chest right in front of her. He braced one hand beside her, his crisp scent quickly overpowering the antiseptic smell in the elevator, enveloping her completely. Gu Union frowned, her expression turning unpleasant. Zhang Siqing looked down at her and said, "It's just a fever, with the director handling it, you'll recover soon. No need to worry." Gu Union didn't speak and didn't give him a single friendly look. With the hospital director present, all of Xiaoxing's examinations were expedited without waiting in line. Soon she was put on an 4-drip. Gu Union leaned against her hospital bed, reached out to touch her forehead, and upon finding that her fever was already subsiding, let out a soft sigh of relief. He then bent down and planted a gentle kiss on her forehead. When Zhang Siqing returned from paying the fees and pushed the door open, this was the scene that greeted him. Gu Union glanced back at him, took out her phone, and said distantly, "How much? I'll transfer it to you." He initially wanted to say it wasn't necessary, he didn't care about such a small amount, but then he remembered how, 5 years ago, after their divorce, Gu Union had blocked all his contact information. He took out his phone, pulled up the QR code, and said stiffly, "Add me." Gu Union glanced at it but didn't scan, tilting her chin up with a faint, aloof gaze. A cold, mocking laugh escaped her lips, her beautiful face openly displaying disdain for him. She said coldly, "Payment QR code." Trying to trick her into giving out her contact information. Dream on. She curled her lips in a scornful expression. She wouldn't give him that opportunity. Zhang Siqing paused his movements, his voice turning icy cold with a terrifying edge of hostility. "No need." Gu Union let out a light scoff, showing no intention to insist, and calmly withdrew his phone with an indifferent expression. "I'll have my assistant transfer the money to your company's account as soon as I get back." Zhang Siqing's face instantly turned ashen. While the two were talking, Xiaoxing also woke up, drowsily opening her eyes. She first saw Gu Union, her little lips pouted, and her large, grape-like eyes instantly welled up with tears, her small face scrunched up pitifully as she whined coquettishly, "Mommy Tilda." Gu Union quickly turned and leaned down, pressing her forehead against Xiaoxing's, then nuzzled her gently, asking softly, "What's wrong? Still feeling unwell?" Chapter 29. He's so fierce. Uncomfortable, little star blinked her sparkling eyes and suddenly sensed the presence of another person in the hospital room. Curious, she turned her head slightly and caught sight of Zhang Siqing's face. The faint smile that had just begun to form on little star's lips instantly vanished as she pressed her pale lower lip tightly together. Although she clearly knew the man before her was her father, Xiaoxing had no desire to acknowledge him and even disliked him intensely. Her eyes darted mischievously as she deliberately asked with a playful expression, "Who is he? Why is he in my hospital room?" "Mommy, I don't like him. Can you make him leave?" Her childish voice brimmed with dissatisfaction and disdain. Hearing this, Zhang Xiqing quickly furrowed his brows, his eyes glinting with a dangerous chill. Xiaoxing wasn't the least bit afraid. Instead, she stuck out her tongue at him and, as if possessed by a dramatic spirit, suddenly let out a weak whimper before burying her little face into Jiyu Yunyan's neck. "Mommy, he's glaring at me. So scary." Little Star is afraid. Her accusing voice was muffled, as if she shrank back in fear. After speaking, she peeked out with half her face to glance at him. Zhang Xiqing's gaze instantly grew complicated. Jiyu Yunyan patted Little Star's head, her eyes seemingly ablaze as she coldly glared at Zhang Xiqing. "President Zhang is truly impressive. Wielding power in the business world isn't enough for you, so you come to a hospital to intimidate a 3-year-old. If you have nothing to do here, just leave. No one welcomes you." Zhang Xiqing's heart ached at the coldness and wariness in her eyes. A hint of red quickly spread across his gaze as his dark eyes fixed on Xiaoxing. Xiaoxing secretly peeked with one eye and, meeting his stare, glared back at him. "Mommy, his eyes are so scary, and he even glared at me." Zhang Xiqing wouldn't stoop to arguing with a child. He could clearly see Jiyu Yunyan's rejection, dislike, wariness, and resistance toward him. He closed his eyes, his hand hanging at his side clenched into a fist, tightening and then loosening again. "Are you really driving me away like this?" Jiyu Yunyan curled her lips indifferently. "Otherwise, should I hire a band to play music and send you off with fanfare?" Not only were her words sharp and biting, but her alluring eyes also stared at him defensively. It was as if she would immediately fight him with everything she had if he dared to make any move against Xiaoxing. Zhang Xiqing's temple throbbed violently, and the cold aura around him erupted instantly. Jiyu Yunyan noticed it immediately, her crimson lips curling into a disdainful smirk. She tapped her neatly trimmed nails twice on the table with a mocking tone. "Zhang Xiqing, if you want to fight, let's take it outside. Don't disturb my daughter's rest in the hospital room." Zhang Xiqing let out a cold laugh, gave her a deep look, and ultimately did nothing before turning to leave directly. Jiyu Yunyan raised an eyebrow in surprise, not expecting him to walk away so easily. Xiaoxing let out a dissatisfied hum. "Mommy, why is he here, when Mommy carried you to the hospital? We saw him downstairs. You were burning up and a bit out of it, so you probably don't remember." Jiyu Yunyan touched her forehead with some concern, and only withdrew her hand contentedly after confirming the fever hadn't returned. Little Xing pouted, her big watery eyes filled with worry. "He didn't bully Mommy, did he?" Jiyu Yunyan smiled, using a wet wipe to gently clean the sweat from Little Xing's forehead before affectionately pinching the tip of her nose. "How could Mommy let him bully you? Your fever just broke. Don't worry about those things. Get some sleep and recover quickly so Mommy can stop worrying." Little Xing was also exhausted from the ordeal and obediently followed her advice to sleep. Jiyu Yunyan carefully took care of her all night. It wasn't until the next day, when she was sure the fever wouldn't return, that she checked her out of the hospital and sent her home to be looked after by the maid. By the time she arrived at the company, it was already past 10 in the morning. Dai Lei noticed the tired look on her face and thoughtfully brewed her a cup of coffee. "Are you feeling all right? The executive assistant from Yingfan called this morning wanting to schedule a meeting with you. Since you weren't in the office, I didn't respond yet. If you're not feeling well, I can decline the invitation right now. Thank you for watching. This is a full-length novel. If you'd like to see the continuation, please leave a comment saying looking forward to more or give the video a like. I'll update based on your feedback. See you next time.